Where's Cody Anderson?
He'll be here if he is not on a job or whatever. We hit the next. There's 2 go live switches that I have to hit now because I'm doing Instagram as well.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're live. So welcome everybody. We'll bullshit for a little bit, and then we'll bullshit officially for an hour or two.
For a little bit more,
yeah. And we have one of my favorite people and best friends, Mr. Michael Bland, and then another favorite person of mine, and hopefully I get to call him a good friend, JT. We'll see who joins us a little later. I'm not.
We'll see when you have the gig if he shows up to help you. That'll be the. That will be the telltale.
I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like if we were in the same city and I needed help with a gig, JT would absolutely show up.
I might, you know.
I don't know if you know JT like that.
I don't know either, but I feel like the possibility is there.
You could try it.
You could try it.
It's easy to say because we're not in the same city.
He'll scope it out.
Let me ask you a question before we keep moving. I'm not. Is my audio okay? Because I'm not using my headphones. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay. You sound fine. I hear Michael echoing through. I'm assuming your thing, or maybe I.
Let me try with the headphones and see if that goes away.
I do
hear. And you tell me if that's
echo.
Gone, because we want to have good audio on an audio podcast.
Hey,
yeah. Is that that's better?
Yep.
Okay, then I guess I do have to keep them on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna take mine off too, and express my melon, but.
Yeah. What? So you had a mohawk for a while. When did you decide to get rid of the mohawk?
Me?
Yeah.
I think I officially decided one morning at the airport when Stinson and Perner, they had like walked to get like breakfast somewhere and came back. They sat down across from me in the terminal. And I see them start whispering in each other's ears and looking at me. And my mohawk, it would been, I think I was running late. I couldn't really get it together like usual that morning. And it was one of them sweaty gigs the night before. And just like, it's like, I don't want to put more of that gel in this thing. And
was it relaxed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. I guess I didn't realize that it was relaxed. I didn't know. I thought it was combed out.
Down like Cab Calloway, brother.
Yeah, that thing was flat.
Oh yeah, I come out the shower.
Okay, well that's easier to visualize then, because if it was relaxed and you didn't have the time to care for it, I could see it being.
Yeah, I look like what's his name? Jelly stays on my mind. Not Billy Eckstein, Big Joe Turner. I look like Big Joe Turner with my hair down. But anyway, I see these two. Both of them got the face of the cat that ate the bird and just looking at me. Like they're trying to decide whether they want to poke me that morning.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, what are you two gabbing about? Stinson was just asking me, did I know, he was like, what do you, is that what you call it when the mohawk is out of commission?
Blasted.
It's Black Hawk down.
Oh man!
And I think I just gave him just all the goop. Just like, man, don't get me started here in public.
Oh man!
It was early, and I wasn't trying to hear it.
Right.
But but you know what? I had to. It was funny. And I had to give him credit for taking the chance, because I don't know if you've heard this about me, but sometimes I can be a not nice person. So I like that.
Yeah,
that's why there's memes of you out there with no thumbs.
Yeah, shocked I say to discover there's gambling in this establishment. Yeah. I had a faux hawk for a while. Actually overlapped with some of the time I was touring with Darnell, if you remember those years. And I eventually stopped doing it because if I couldn't get to the barber shop frequently enough for it to be like cleaned up, people would assume I was in the military, because it looked like once it would grow out a little bit, it would look like one of
nice
those
little
military.
box happening,
Yeah. But it was real clean when it was fresh. But yeah,
that's the other thing that eventually it's like the maintenance on the road is just it's trouble, And I had to grow out, and then you'd have a two textured situation going, and pretty soon you just want to put a hat over the thing or shave it all off. I was going to Lisa and them's house. I was going to LaQuisha's. My auntie said she could hook you up, and
Right.
First off, I'm in a rock band, and I got to go find the black part of town.
Right.
Or try to, hey, brother, just catch a dude in the parking lot of the Burger King. Hey, man, where do you get your haircut around here?
Right.
All of that.
It wasn't like there was that much internet the way there is now, where you could just go on social media and people would give you some recommendations and you could vet them before you went there.
Yeah,
you used to be at the mercy of if this would have been cell phone era, but you were at the mercy of cell phones and who you could call and who you could text.
That's all very true. The Mohawk was a great thing to have to cultivate. Mitsu Yang worked with this little, what do they call it? Little. It's not a bonsai tree, but she worked. She put the love on it, gave it all the love and care and nutrients, and then I went out there and just tore it up.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, because when you're on stage, it's always good to have distinctive things that people, see and remember. So that's the advantage of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then there's the care that goes into it.
It was Ryan Listman. He's like, I miss when your hair used to be like different. He's like, what do you mean? He's like when you had hairstyles and stuff, man. Like, I thought that was cool.
It's like, rock and roll. It's definitely rock and roll.
So that's one thing to start cultivating in December, and then you get to June. Right. You've got it's all working, but then you're going from city to city, and late nights, early mornings.
Right.
Lactic acid
on everything. Right.
Yep. Lactic acid, itching and scratching, and dandruff. And dude.
Well, plus, we both got headphones on right now, and at least if you're in the studio, you're gonna have to wear headphones. And any crazy hairstyle you have and headphones don't go well together.
Oh, I found different ways around it. I had practice with the hat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had been already in the studio with Prince.
Yeah, you did promise years ago that you were gonna find one of those hats and wear it for the podcast. So,
Yeah.
One of these years.
Huh?
I said one of these years.
One of these years. Yeah. It'll come and it'll go. And hey, remember that time you did that thing? So let's keep promoting it and talk it up so that when it does happen,
JT,
nobody can say they missed it.
This wasn't the icebreaker I intended, but let's roll with it. So have you always had the long rock and roll hair, and is that anything you have to contribute to the rock and roll hairstyles?
I mean, I've never had like a mohawk or anything like that. I've had some short hair at times, but I've pretty much always had kind of just long hair.
Is the long hair just for the lack of maintenance, or is it for the the stereotype of musicians in long hair, or is there particular reason?
Probably
all
of the above. I mean, it's definitely lack of maintenance or just not going and getting a haircut for a really long time.
Just about all women like it.
Yeah, and then there's that, and it just is fun and does just look better in photos on stage. Or have a whole bunch of hair, just kind of like helps cover up this ugly mug I got a little bit, which helps too,
I won't surmise one way or the other.
It's not for you to say.
But
yeah, I know how JT swings. I've seen it.
No mohawks and no maintenance, right? I mean, I let get out of the shower.
I want to say I saw JT. I seen a picture of you, and that's the hair I always want to see you in.
It's kind of the mid shag, medium shaggy.
It looked like, was there a band called Thrash?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I'm wearing an old Thrasher skateboard T-shirt.
Yes, and the hair is like almost new wave.
Yep, it's a little shorter. Yep, shorter bangs. Not long. I think I know what picture you're talking about. Yeah,
that one always. I feel a little something when I see that shot.
Right. Yep. I could see that. Yep. That's about as short as my hair has been in any recent times.
I got you.
Yeah. But I hear you. I could go back. You know, could go back someday.
Well, then you might make Pern do it, and then what happens is, it's funny because my wife had said, Dave Pirner should never cut his hair short.
He tried it once.
He looks like a little boy when he does.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I remember he tried it once.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like didn't look
right.
Like didn't look like him.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing Dave is the aesthetic.
Right. Right. You can't change it. Right. It is.
Yeah. Sorta. I mean, but so much about this new record is like it makes me want to it's like what's gonna happen here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes, right. What's actually, it's like it's a weird latent opportunity to sort of turn the tables on everything. That's how I feel about it. But
is this the record that you guys did with Steve?
Yeah.
So that's not out yet, correct?
It is not.
Is it still in post?
It's done. It's ready. We're it's still in the
like everything audio
phase of things, but the album itself is done. Right.
Okay, that answers my question. It's done with post, at least from a music standpoint. Now it's waiting on the rest of the logistics.
Yeah, it's ready. It's waiting on everything else. The music is done. Right. The rest is still baking in the oven, I suppose.
Bacon in the oven.
Artwork and etc. But
I'm definitely excited to hear it, in part because I love Steve, and I know Michael loves Steve, and I know he was a big inspiration on Michael growing up, and so hearing Michael and Steve together, and the.
Is there a way for me to quickly share you a shot that Dave sent me?
No, I got it too.
How would I do that? Dave?
Either you can go. It's probably the easiest thing is just to send it to me.
Is this you with We On?
Yes, yeah. I just sent the text to make sure that if anybody else wanted to join us, that they knew that we were on.
Yeah. Okay.
Cody.
What happens if I push it through there?
That's gonna go to my phone and not send it to my email if you can.
So you need me to send an email or something?
Yeah, if you can. If not, okay. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
let me just do that. Since we happen to just dally into this, and it's kind of a
yeah, right. Kind of ties it all up nicely.
Yeah, why not? It's we're having a sort of a general. Let's see, where did it go? Where did it go?
Plus, I feel like we could also tie it together by talking about engineering that record a little bit too. With Steve.
Oh, sure. No, that's definitely we can.
Well, that's all. Yeah, and that's what I think. That's what part of, or most of what Michael's talking about is that record from an engineering standpoint, from the way it was made. Kind of all of it is kind of wildly different than anything the band has done in a while. Therefore, the outcome, while it still sounds like Soul Asylum, is not. It's quite a bit different than it's been in a while. So.
Was Steve ever physically there, or did he do everything remotely?
He was here. Okay. All the tracking, was live, and he was here for that. Okay, all the pre-production was remote, but he came here for the tracking. Yeah. Yep. Oh. And when I say live, I mean live. Like we had to get it together. And not until then, and that was that, right?
How many takes would you do?
It was really song dependent. Some went fast, and some we did a bunch of times, and then it was like, let's try this again tomorrow and see if it's better tomorrow. Some happened in 2 takes, some maybe happened in 10 takes, or some, or give or take a few, but totally song dependent. And one of the classic Steve Jordanisms was after a take, he would come on and do the thing. Wow, guys, that was really great. That was really, really great. And if we never played the song again, I think we'd have it. But I'd like to just do one more time. And then it was like, you might hear that exact same speech 3 times in a row. Or
did he mean it every time, or was it like the show businessy? That was great, guys.
I do it again. It was probably a little bit of both. I mean, it probably was like, it is getting closer. Let's see if we can beat it. You know what I mean? And if at some point we start sliding back down and go in the other direction, we'll stop right here. But until that happens, let's go one more time.
A tangent, but I don't think I ever asked Michael this. Did you guys reach out to Steve, or did he reach out to you guys? Like, how was the decision made for him to produce the record?
I think it came up probably between Joel, our manager, and Dave, because we had discussed. Well, JT, maybe you're better in the position to see about this or to explain this, because you guys were doing the thing with Butch.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I thought the original idea was like you're going to do the thing is it the Joey something?
Yeah, Joey's song, which is in Madison, which is like the benefit show down there every year.
Yeah.
Butch and company kind of co-host, and he's a part of every year. So, right, we did. we were for the second year in a row, or a couple years in a row, went down there and played, and we played with Butch, who made a record with Soul Asylum in the late '90s. So we started talking about the concept of maybe working with Butch again, but I don't really remember how it then ended up back over at Steve. I mean, there's certainly a handful of producers Dave has worked with throughout the years, Steve and Butch being two of them, that were like, I would love to work with either one of those guys again. But I don't really remember how it went back to Steve. I remember it was like, oh, we should ask Steve Jordan. And it was kind of one of those like, yeah, wouldn't that be great?
It was kind of like, well, while we're at it,
like,
let's make the rounds and see about all these dudes.
I suppose, I was like, wow, if Butch is
Jordan
interested,
could be
maybe
cool.
we should see who else might be interested. And yeah, I felt like the Steve thing was like, we'll send it to Steve, and again, like wouldn't that be cool? And it was like all of a sudden, like, hey, Steve is digging what he's hearing, he wants to hear some more. And like, whoa, wait a minute, like this actually could happen. Like, no, he's really excited about it. Like it might happen. And then it was like, it is gonna happen. And then
like
next thing you know, he's staring at us through the Zoom lens, and we're at the rehearsal space, and he's like, all right, from the top, what do you got? Like, all right, we're playing for Steve now. Like, here it is.
And that didn't stop until we finished the tracking.
right. Still, yeah, right.
We were playing for Steve.
Yeah, there you go. So that was taken just the other day. That's down in New Orleans at Dave's home studio in New Orleans, and that's Michael's kit.
Yeah, that's the kit that me and Pete drove out there because I didn't like doing the sessions on the kit they had.
So that's the one you took down there and just left down there.
Yeah, it's was a Yamaha. What's that? 24, 16, 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So there's Steve over at Perner Studio doing whatever they're doing. The Stones were at a Jazz Fest this year, so Dave went down to see the guys and hang out.
And apparently they ended up pairing off, and
looks like it. Yeah. Looks like it on the photographic evidence.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, Jordan blessed the kit.
Yeah, exactly.
Was this your time working with Steve, Michael?
Was this what? Sorry,
your first time working with Steve?
Yeah, I gotta say I've met him before, but I wouldn't say we knew each other. Mm-hmm. Sonny and I met him at the Hit Factory in New York, like the week after we did the Special Olympics.
Oh, that's such a great show. I watched that clip of the Special Olympics a bunch of times. That's very rewatchable to me. That's just a great arrangement with Diamonds and Pearls and the Baby I'm a Star James Brown medley.
What about that moves the needle for you?
I mean, for starters, it's you, Sonny, Rosie. It's my favorites of the NPG camp. It's just, how, like, sometimes a live version sounds like the record and sometimes it sounds like something completely different. In that case, at least for Diamonds and Pearls, the live version sounds like the record, but with extra energy and there's added things to the arrangement, but it still has the things that you like about the record, but it has extra to it. It looks like everybody was having fun. The audience looked like they were really thoroughly into it. And then I think that particular Baby I'm a Star medley kind of leaned into the James Brown a little more than sometimes other times did. And I always kind of felt that Prince is the true heir to like the James Brown showmanship, throne more so than anybody else. He could do James's thing better than anybody but James, pretty much.
Huh. That's including Terrence Trent D'Arby?
I'm not familiar, actually. Who?
You know who I'm talking about.
Okay, let me look him up.
Wish
Say it again.
me love, a wishing well to kiss and
Oh.
tell. I'm wishing well, a crocodile tear.
I don't think I've ever seen him perform. I'm talking about like the whole like stage showmanship. Like to me,
yes, you should go back to.
I will. Oh, I will. After we're done tonight, I will go back and look for some live performances of his.
Barbarella saw him at First Avenue when he toured for that first record with all those hits on it. He said, "Man, it was like watching. It was like it all looked and sounded like he was the next cat up.
Wow.
Like he was about to shove everybody off, off the hill."
For me, like the difference between like with James Brown and like his lineage splits two ways to me, and like one is the way that like and I think Prince is one of the only people who could ever do both sides of it, because there's like the James where it's just if you just had James, a band, and a microphone, you didn't need anything else. That was a show. And Prince could do that, and I feel like there's other artists who could do it. There's other artists that go the other way, the Michael Jackson way, where it's like Usher and Beyonce, where they put on a great. And I'm a big fan of Beyonce, especially, but both of them, they put on a great show, but their shows all have special effects, and they have choreography, and they have lighting, and they have sets, and they have all the extra. And Prince could do that, but he didn't need any of that, and that's the James. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, it's like you have to cherry pick a band for the use that you have in mind. And I think also probably the main reason that band is so kind of James driven is because all of modern music was so James driven.
Oh, James invented three genres by himself.
Yeah. So it's pretty hard to ignore it. And we're musicians, so we can't just sample James like everybody else. We got to get them parts into the music, into the bloodstream. And Levi was just the cat because he knew all of it. He would just drop James Brown rhythm guitar parts, it didn't matter what key we were in. He'd change them a little bit,
You guys were still doing that a couple of weeks ago at rehearsal.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
Like JT, you have a story to tell from a vantage point that I don't even have.
Yeah.
You got to watch. I wish I could have sat and watched what was going on. I could feel it.
Yeah.
I knew what was happening, but to just be able to not be responsible and just
I can actually kind of pan around the room and kind of watch.
Yeah, you got to sop up all the good juice. Man.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you saw Levi was killing us. Me and Sonny, we were laughing like possums eating grapes, man.
Yeah.
Because he was just too tough with it.
Yeah, it was cool to watch. It was cool. I mean, I never got to see you guys. I never knew you guys or watched you guys play together back then. But to know that lineage and to see it now, I don't know. It was just cool to watch. Not only how quickly it gelled, but just like stuff like that. Like Levi would just start chunking the simplest rhythm, and you and Sonny would be like, "Wait a minute, we got work to do now. We can't be taking us down that street again right now because we want to go, but we got." That was
the hardest job. The hardest job I've had to do in a long time was stopping the funk when the funk's saying yes, go. Right. Go, man.
Right.
And I got to say to the funk, we can't.
We got work to do right now. Right.
There's a show coming up in 2 days.
So I have a theory about this, and JT, you're a guitar player, so you can let me know if you agree or disagree with this theory.
Okay.
But my theory is that like what you guys are talking about, like the James Brown rhythm parts, I mean, they're all very simple. They're all between 2 and 4 note chords for the most part. Most of them are chord shapes that everybody knows. I can't think of a single James Brown rhythm guitar part that isn't simple. And I just have this theory that the reason why that most guitar players don't do what Levi is doing and just use those rhythm parts is because they think it's too simple. They think it's too Mickey Mouse. They think they're not going to be seen or looked at as a good guitar player because they're taking the simple option. But the simple option makes the song so many times.
Well, it's just the availability to play very little yet present so much pocket. If you do that right, like I could watch Levi just play a chord, just a single chord, but with just enough, you know, whatever that little thing is on it, where everyone's just like, "What's he playing, man?" You know, and it's just instantly creating space and time. You know what I mean? Where it's, I mean, it's. I guess you're right. It is easy to think that like you need to do more to be impressive, but I guess the big lesson is like if you can do all the least one note and be impressive, like then more is just more after that. But you've got that's the core.
Yeah.
You know?
I got hired for the first tour I ever did. I was in a rehearsal for like a convention where it was just anybody could play if you knew somebody. It wasn't like this wasn't, you know, it was one of those things where different musicians could rotate in and out. And I rotated in on guitar, and I didn't know any of the music because I hadn't come expecting to play. And so all I did was play octaves for most of the songs, and the ones I didn't play octaves, I played like single note rhythm parts that were just basically one note. And I got hired for I think 3 different things based on that. And including my first tour, including my first like record company session, I got because and everybody's, "Oh my God, you're such a good guitar player." And I was like, "Really? Okay, I'll take it." But all I did was play octaves because I didn't know the song. And
I was just trying to stay out of the way, right?
Yeah.
But add something to the suit,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, or you find those notes that can kind of push you through enough relatable chord progression.
Right.
You find those notes that work straight through. I saw Steve Lukather talking about this. Like you
That's
think of like a song
as
like
a guitar, right? If you can find a couple things that drone, you can maybe leave a finger or two planted and just move the other fingers around a little bit. Right.
But the other thing
he's centered on like what is it? Beat
right.
Like those notes that'll, you know, he's like he just sits there and then it comes time for call and response and you get that.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was having a conversation with somebody and I don't remember who, but it was somebody. If it wasn't like you and Sonny, then it was somebody from like the Earth, Wind and Fire extended family, and I know Philip Bailey's son. I've met a bunch of them.
What's Philip Bailey's son name?
I'll have to check because he's got like, well, I think he's junior technically, but he's got like a different name on Facebook. But he's my Facebook friend. I'll look. He has some like African name as his Facebook name.
But is that his government name?
No, it's not. Well, maybe he changed it. I don't know. I didn't ask. I don't interrogate people.
All right.
No, you know, people, you know,
especially you've been black adjacent for a long time there. You know, not to ask is that your government name? Because somebody, you ask the wrong person that, they might have a real problem.
Especially when people go and find themselves and but then there's people that like, I have a lot of people I grew up with that like took their first trip to Africa and then came back and gave themselves an African name, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's that whole thing. I want to say his Instagram is Lion from the Moon, maybe, but he's on social media. But he sings with them now. And I'm social media friends with him and met him and some of the other guys that have worked with him over the years are either I've met them and connected on social media or whatnot. But somebody I was talking to, I remember asking, and it was either somebody from that old camp or it was like you and it was somebody that I look up to. Let's put it that way. And so it's either you and Sonny, somebody from that camp, etc. And I remember talking about how, to me, there's only really 2 songwriters that have been able to write incredibly complex jazz stuff that would never make a hit under normal circumstances, and yet they make it accessible to like to pop music ears. And that's, you know, Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire, because they have these songs that have all these incredibly incredible complexities to them, but then they still have the simplicity that makes them, they can be a pop hit. And I remembered asking somebody, well, how did they do that? And whoever it was I was talking to said that one of the secrets for Earth, Wind and Fire was the guitar player. And I want to say, what is his name? Al McKay, the original guitar player. What's the original guitar player in Earth, Wind and Fire's name? I'm blank.
Oh, Al McKay. Absolutely.
Yeah, Al McKay. Yep. That he was the secret weapon, because it didn't matter how complicated the chord changes were. He would find a rhythm part that didn't follow the chord changes, but it would fit. But the rhythm part would be something that grounded everything. So if somebody didn't have the right kind of ear for all those complex chord changes, that rhythm guitar part grounded everything and made it accessible.
Yeah, I watched a conversation between Levi and Prince about that. They're like, man, they messed up when they let Al McKay go.
Maybe it was you that told me that then. I remember having that conversation with somebody, and there's something about a simple guitar part. But again, you kind of answered my question, but not really, JT. I really want to know why guitar players don't like playing simple guitar parts.
Listen, man, first off, let me speak in defense of guitar players who don't mind playing simple, who are some of the best I've ever heard. Listen, Malcolm Young is one of my favorite rock guitar players of all time. And I'm telling you, man, that dude was funky to me. AC/DC, Angus Young's brother. He was the rhythm guy. He never stepped out front. Him and the bass player stepped to the microphone at the same time.
Right.
And then they stepped right back.
Yeah.
And that rhythm was always so tight and so right, man. That dude, I mean, it don't get simpler than Back in Black.
Right.
You know, the main part of the riff, not a lot of positions in it. There's some rhythm happening, you know.
Yep.
But I mean, I think that's the enduring, that's the stuff of AC/DC that's the most mesmerizing. It's like, how can you maintain that formula for like 50 years, man?
Right.
And
not have to really change or evolve really much of anything. Right.
Yeah, and the world has to change around you. That's how much of a footprint you've made.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question, Spiffy. I mean, I'm like the exact wrong guy to ask, because I always idolized all the guys in the other channel that were playing all the rhythm stuff. Or like I think of myself as a studio guitar player, so I'm better at clean palm muting than I am at playing some kind of lead. Like I never really wanted to learn how to play lead guitar, and maybe that's why a lot of guitar players don't like playing simple, because so many guitar players, that's the first thing they want to do is like get fast and all the look at me stuff. Like I was never, I don't know, I never really thought about trying to get fast. It was like, all right, I know enough chords to like write my own little punk rock songs or whatever. Like, go.
It's the same with drummers.
Sure.
The one thing that most young drummers have in common is they're playing too much. They don't understand the thing that is the least fun is going to take you the farthest.
Right. And it's more difficult than you think. And it maybe takes a little age and wisdom to realize that playing clean and simple is much more difficult than you when you're a kid. You write it off like, oh, anyone can do that. That's that's basic 101 stuff. I'm trying to get advanced. It's like,
and you do that. You do that until you feel you're due for advancement.
Right.
And then usually that's the time in your journey.
Right.
That
your head opens
you're
up
revisited. You're revisited by this concept that you poo-pooed because discipline is no fun.
Right.
That's what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Discipline's no fun. Everyone wants to go fast and have fun and do that. Right.
Yeah, you got soft bones because you didn't drink your milk.
Right.
And you didn't eat your vegetables.
Right.
And
no
now
one told you how to put your seatbelt on, and now you're going 150 down.
But no, you want to go fast.
Right.
You want to do what feels good to you.
Right. And
there's a reason these rules are set in place. There's a reason you got to eat. All the green ones. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, as a kid playing guitar, Catfish Collins was the dude I always wanted to be.
Who didn't? If you knew about him, how would you not want to be Catfish Collins? Bootsy's brother.
Because I got one of those. Somebody gave me, or maybe I found it online in the early days of online. Somebody gave me a bootleg of a Bootsy Collins live concert from the tour when they were doing like Bootzilla and the Pinocchio Theory and all those songs.
Oh I've seen that. I think I had that on VHS.
And his guitar parts on that, like he would play the stuff that was on the record, but then they had a lot of like long jams and stuff, and not a lot of solos. Mostly Maceo did the solos.
Sure.
And he would come up with these rhythm parts that were clearly like came up with like on the spot on like maybe day 2 of touring, and then he just kind of built them into the tour as the tour progressed, and they were so funky and so clever. And yeah, that was the dude that to me, and even like when I discovered Prince as a guitar player, as you know, I was his rhythm playing that I fell in love with. And most people talk about how great of a soloist he was, and people share that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame solo all the time. It was his rhythm playing that I loved. I was just like this, you know, he took the kind of stuff that Catfish was doing, and like was the first person I heard. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to add a little different creativity to it. There's going to be a little different discord between these two strings, but it's the same concept. It's the rhythm and the space. And pick like Controversy, I think, was the first song where I fell in love with Prince's rhythm guitar playing.
Because it's raw.
I think it's just 2 notes. I think it's just a two note chord, and it's 2 notes that are right next to each other too. It's like, who does that? Nobody, you know.
But you know what? You start thinking about stuff like that. The song's called Controversy.
Yeah.
And what controversy is tension. That's that
That's that depth, right? It's all put together, right?
That's how much all of that dude stuff works together.
Right.
It's like I've been in a thing lately, and I don't want to go all the way there, but yeah, it's like it catches your ear because it's awkward, but the funk of it, and that it's just out there like that. It's just so bold. He was on a 16 track, you know. Every track had to say as much as possible.
It's crazy to me because I went on a Facebook rant the other day about other artists comparing themselves to Prince and people comparing their favorite artist to Prince, and it was kind of inspired by somebody that you and I were talking about last week, who's been comparing themselves to Prince for a while now, and I'm just like you, but you say that shows me that you have not even a fundamental understanding of who Prince was. If you think that anything that you're doing, I'm not talking about that person specifically, just in general, when you think of what he was able to accomplish with the tools that he had at the time, that's a once in a millennia.
It's easy to say stuff like that after the fact.
Yeah.
Like you come along and you stumble across Prince and say, oh yeah, you know, well okay, well yeah, I hear what's going on there, you know, and it's easier to be dismissive of of something you haven't had as much time or experience with, you know.
Well, like you said, it's easier also when it's already been discovered. Like you're like,
that's right.
How do you put yourself in the position of this thing already exists, and I can go on YouTube and find somebody dissecting how to do it versus being somebody who did it when it had never been done before.
Right. And he had to do it all, well, not completely by himself, but
for all intents and purposes.
He was the master editor.
Right.
He was the one who decided what was going to make it,
right,
you know, to the public or not.
Stumbling across advanced techniques, whether he knew it or not at the time, to actually be able to facilitate these concepts that were rolling around in his brain.
Yeah, it's easy to get with it once it's been figured out.
Well, now it's easy now because someone else figured it out, right?
Yeah,
I think Susan Rogers, I heard her talking about how good he was at splicing tape, which to me is a foreign concept in the first place in this day of digital recording.
That's what I mean. And no one teaching him, like him figuring out, well, I need this to go here, and the only way to do that, I guess, is going to be like he must have just figured these things out.
No, some of it. Let's be fair, because he did kind of have a mentor in Chris Moon. Chris Moon, Prince. My understanding is that Prince worked for Chris Moon in exchange for hours in the studio.
Right. Sure.
That's what I seem to recall it being. I could be.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
That makes sense, but I mean,
so he learned a lot of things from that dude and started doing sessions for for clients there,
right,
himself,
right,
and so there's something along those lines. Yeah, so it wasn't like he was unskilled. He had seen some things done, and he had any questions he had.
Was
I mean,
clearly able to pick up a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I mean, a lot of those, even if someone did show him, a lot of that stuff was like pretty brand new techniques, even in the late 70s at that point too. To even be like, all right, now I'm making my own demos and implementing some of this stuff that like just people just weren't doing it yet. You know?
And
And
what's
like
funny,
going back to like we were saying, after it's already done and the roadmap is made, it's very easy to go, yeah, the treasure's right here. It's like, well, yeah, someone just handed you the map.
Yeah, and that's why that's such a slimy thing to do.
Yeah.
How are you going to compare yourself to somebody who, crushed the first atom while you were still swimming around,
right.
With a tail.
Right.
The other example I had of simplicity in guitar playing specifically, but I guess
you were a
applies
zygote. Sorry.
anything.
Okay, go ahead, man.
No, is and I think Michael knows one of my other favorite guitar players, Jubu.
He's one of my favorites too. Oh boy, he make that guitar cry.
Him and some of his fellow musicians from his camp, like Teddy Campbell and Warren Campbell and all those guys that did a lot of that LA stuff together in the same era. They have a quartet group called the Soul Seekers that they put together just for fun.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of session guys saying, well, we all love quartet music. Why not do this just for the heck of it? And there's a song by the Soul Seekers called What Would You Do that has a Jubu guitar solo in it. And there's the record version and there's a live version. And he basically did a different version or variation of the same solo, both in the record version and the live version. But the first time I heard that solo, and I'm not a solo guy, I'd much rather play rhythm like Jeremy was talking about. When I solo, it's because I have to. And, Michael's taught me some things that have helped me think better about my soloing, and hopefully I'm progressing, but it's not my passion. My passion is playing rhythm. That's what I love to do. But when I heard that solo, it was just like, because nothing he's doing in that solo is something I couldn't do. It's all very simple, but I never would have thought to have done it. And that's the whole thing about, like, sometimes it's very hard to play simple because it's making the right choice in the right place. And I was so mad when I heard that solo, because I was like, I could have played that solo, but in a million years I never would have thought of it.
Well,
and another good example of that is the Diamonds and Pearls drum solo. That's not that technically complicated, but people to this day still, drummers still shake when they hear the name Michael Bland, oh, Mr. Bland, because of like doing that in the right place in time, in the right time in history, that alone has made you a legend.
Well, timing is everything, isn't it? That's what you need to say, brother. Because I didn't know what I was going to play.
It's not just timing, though, but you also had to think of it. You had to think of.
I really did while I'm playing the track.
Yep.
It's not like Prince gave me a minute to think about it between takes.
Right, or you haven't been playing that for 6 months on tour, trying different fills every night and figuring out where you're going to land
that day, like an hour before that.
Right.
And then we went in the studio and started getting tones. We got one pass down. He was like, that was great. Let's do one more. But instead of this, he starts asking for, let's change the kick drum pattern here just for the couple bars that are in transition. Do this. Hey, can we lose a beat here? And okay. And he says, oh, and that empty space, like when we get
something in there, something nice,
put something in there. And I said, oh, okay, and that was, that was man time. What are you now?
That's it. That's the end all be all right there.
Yeah, you about to tell Prince who you are for the rest of your working association, how long or short that may be.
I have a nephew that plays drums, and I remember showing him that for the first time. And he's a very good drummer. I wish he would play more. He kind of gave up the drums a little bit. But he's a very good drummer, but he's young and he's got chops. And me and my god brother, his dad, were showing him some examples, and that was one of them. And he's like, well, what's so hard about that? I could play that. And I was like, you don't understand. at that time in history, no one had ever done that on a pop record. You know,
Yeah, not
that
exactly.
there was, like as you pointed out in a previous episode of this podcast, the closest thing we had on a record was Joel Smith, which is where your inspiration came from, and that was on a gospel record. And even then, it wasn't like in the spotlight. It was something that Joel was doing just as a part of the record, and you took it and embellished it and made it, that
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, it's a perfect example of it's not about what you can play. It's about what you play and where.
It's about the choices. Yeah, it's not about is that difficult.
It's about the choices, and that's it. And it's and that's what separates the thing. And not only making the choice, making it quickly. It's the thing of you got to have something to say. Then you got to quickly be able to say it. You had to say it on that second take. There was no time to figure out how you were going to stick.
It's not like Prince was going to sit there and watch me work it out.
Yeah, can I punch that? Hang on, almost. I got hung up. Whoa, one more. That's not how it was.
And he was greedy about
it. Right.
He was chintzy.
Right. I bet. Right.
Yeah. So those are the aspects that your nephew,
yeah,
he doesn't have all that as context. I get it.
Yeah, I've had to, that's just one example, but I've had to explain to some young musicians, and that's been a great example of, yeah, if you were born in in the last 20 years and you grew up listening to Thomas Pridgeon and Calvin Rogers, something like that may sound simple, but if you heard it for the first time in 1991, it blew your mind.
Right, people what was that doing? This ain't the gospel channel. What was that?
Right, there was no gospel chops channel to just watch drum fills for 2 hours a day.
A reduced gospel chop in the middle of a pop song.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, Calvin, one of the choppingest drummers there is. You can on half the records that he plays, he's playing pocket. And if he's not playing pocket, it's because they specifically hired him and asked him to go out.
Yeah, people think that's what he wants to do. And the reality is that he probably loves to do it all, but anybody with pocket that strong is in it for the pocket. It's like he takes no prisoners. That's how I like to look at it too. I don't always have it, but it's like that's what I'm always after. It's like it's gotta feel good, man. You can't just be back there like you're on punishment until it's time for a drum fill, and then yeah. Like if you're in it for the drumming, then just stay in the basement with your friends and do whatever.
Right, play along to whatever you want.
Finger and whatnot. Right. Yeah, if you want to play them reindeer games, that's cool. But I knew where I was headed. I knew what I wanted out of life, and I knew music could get me there. So, I gotta say, I somehow, and I'll also say this: even when I first started hearing about Calvin. That was the distinction that everybody drew for me. They're like, what Brandon and Smitty and the Godfather and B. Have you heard Calvin Rogers? I'm like, I feel like I've heard the name before. I think, is it possible that he played on a Kelly Price record?
Are you asking me, or are you asking? Is that part of the conversation?
I'm asking you. JT don't know nothing about.
I'm sure that's possible. I can look it up if you give me a second.
It was something that it was one of his early on, real like everybody was starting to go, man, Calvin Rogers, man.
At the very least, among gospel, we all knew him from John P. Key, "Rain on Us," because he was super young when he was a teenager when he started playing for John P. Key, and John is one of those where the pocket and the extra are almost equally important to John. I'd say probably a little bit more towards the pocket, but if you play with John, he's going to give you some moments to shine.
Those gospel cats, yeah, they really want to lean on that drummer energy. They really,
And so that was the record where we knew that Calvin could chop. And then when he got, I think it was maybe Ricky Dillard, or I can't remember the order of things. Then at some point it got to be where we knew that he could play pocket too, because he was. It might have been. I'm not finding Kelly Price, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means
That's
it's
okay.
not on his list
It
of
was
credits.
one of those-
But it could have been R. Kelly. He definitely played on some R. Kelly records.
Nope, this was a gospel, a woman, gospel artist.
Okay.
Early in her career, I can't remember her name now, but they were already talking about it's like it's not just. They were learning from Calvin that it's not just about the chops, and also that like placement, like intent is like important. Like you got to play that stuff like your life depends on it, you know. But
I just texted Calvin. We'll see if he texts me back. And
what?
And
Don't put Calvin on here, man.
Ruin
my night, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just asked him if he played on the record, but also if he wants to join us, he can come. He can come hang.
Well, you send him a link, man.
Yeah. Well, if he texts me back, I will. Calvin's one of those dudes. I might get a text back in 30 seconds. I might get a text back in 2 weeks. You know?
All right. Well, let a brother eat his chicken wings on a Tuesday night, man. You have to hassle brother Calvin, hassling the brother.
But I will say, and then you made me pay attention. I went back and I'd already kind of fell in love with the band, but you made me go back and listen to all Steve's playing on the old Letterman show.
Oh, dude.
You mentioned that, and I went back and I'd already loved that band, but I'd never specifically singled out Steve, and I went back, and it could be, and we can talk about engineering too, because it could be part of the way, it could be how the drums were mixed, part of it could be how he played, but when it's him, and I'm nothing against Anton, but when it's Steve versus Anton, those drums just pop. They're just you feel them through your television speakers.
Yep.
I think that I think they probably, now that I know Jordan a little bit, that wasn't some ordinary union dude mixing that show. Somebody got the good guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, he's smart enough to be like, we're gonna bring in a couple guys from my band and a couple guys on this crew.
Well, the other thing that I think you were about to say something, but let me say this first, that because I didn't know that band was Jordan's band.
Right.
He had a band he was already that was Schaefer and Hiram and Will. And so when the TV gig, came, he just pulled his own band into it.
It was maybe the Fifth Street Band or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but all I can think about right now is the episode that I remember seeing with Jeffrey Lee Johnson playing guitar. They did an instrumental version of Shotgun, and he had a hat on, and he looked like what's that? Superman Love. He looked like that dude. Johnny Guitar Watson. Jeff looked like Johnny Guitar, man. He was bad.
24th Street Band. That was the name of it. I knew it was a numbered street name.
Oh, that's hot.
And well, did you know that Jeff Lee was supposed to replace Hiram in that band, on the Letterman band?
That's not the way Steve talked about it. We actually discussed it for a little while, and he said, there's some cats that you call them for what they do, and there's some cats you call that can just kind of do everything. And he felt like Jeff Lee's voice and aesthetic and sort of viewpoint was a little bit more singular. And he played less like sort of like a knockaround dude and more like somebody with a very focused vision.
Sure.
And I think they found that disruptive because they were just playing covers.
Sure.
But Letterman loved the guy, So I think that was kind of it. He said the same thing to me about Anthony Jackson on some record date. He's like, I love Anthony Jackson, but he's the type of dude you got to call him to do what he does.
Yeah, we've come across that in town. There's certain drummers in town that are amazing drummers. Well, in town and out of town, frankly. Soul Asylum over the years has tried out a handful of subs to do some traveling for Michael, and we've played with some guys who are great guys, but we've seen the same thing happen where sometimes their voice is so specific that they can't figure out how to sound like they're in our band. It's not like it still sounds like them playing. Oh, now it's them with this thing. And it's like, sometimes you don't, especially as a drummer. I mean, kind of maybe for every different instrument or instrumentalist, but it's great to have your own voice, but it's also, depending on what you're trying to do, you got to be able to sound like anyone or play with anybody. Like Michael talks about, whether it's a funk thing or a polka thing or somewhere in between, like he'll find you something to play to get the job done, you know, and not have to sound like Michael Bland playing, sound like whatever the thing needs to get by. You know?
Gotta, if you're, and that's, now we are really talking about capitalism.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to find the line between being a chameleon and having your own identity, because you kind of need a little bit of both, unless you're going to be a solo artist.
Well, you have to excel in areas that people don't normally notice. That's what I'm saying, is that playing strong time is something you'll only notice if you've been playing with people who don't.
Yeah.
And this kind of bounces off of what we were talking about with Cody, where it's your own awareness can be your best asset or work completely against you. You know, because if it's a thing that you can't, if there's a problem you can't detect, you can't even begin to figure out how you're going to fix it.
Sure. You don't know it's broken.
And that's not even being judgmental. That's just, you know what I mean? It's like you can't fix what you don't. It's like having, you know, having your zipper down.
Yeah, exactly right. You didn't know, right?
Right. If you don't feel the breeze,
right.
What can anybody tell you, really?
Sure. Yep.
I do want to ask, before we get too far away from it, and certainly whatever you feel comfortable sharing or not, did Steve talk anything else about the Letterman era? Did he have anything else to say about being on the show or his relationship with Dave or anything like that? You know,
I on purpose tried not to hem him up too much.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that probably goes for all of us. I don't think anyone would be like, so what was it like meeting Bob, playing with, you know, it's like, just being around Steve is cool enough. You don't need to ask for cool stories.
Yeah.
You know, he'll offer cool enough shit. You don't have to ask for more, you know. Like,
this is so much in alignment with a semi-angry email I sent yesterday.
Oh dear.
To a guy, he's probably not watching, and I'm not going to bring up his name anyway because I like him. But, you know, I'll admit something, that I have a small subset group of fans, like mostly Prince fans, who I sort of like, if they want to talk or correspond with me and the questions are interesting enough, like I'll maintain these contacts with people, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
And this dude kind of came at me about some English white dude on YouTube who's been dissecting all of Prince's guitar work. And really, like, he really plays quite well. And also has a lot of very complimentary things to say about Prince in the clip, as well as in the comments. There's a lot of people saying a lot of great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me something along the lines of like, what do you think Prince would think of this guy? And at first I blacked out because I didn't want to be a rude. I didn't want to get, you know, I mean, maybe I should explain to you why it was such a
trigger.
Yeah, why it triggered me. So thank you. I don't have the newfangled words of the youth.
Right, that's a young man's word, right?
But I got my own words, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Right. Some of them I can't say right now,
and some of them I just can't say right now. But I said it depends on when you asked him. It depends on who he talked to before you. It depends on what he had for dinner. Listen, man, real artists don't stand around listening to other people dissect their work.
Yeah.
There's work to be done.
Yeah.
Like certain basic tenets, people don't understand music as a rational process. It's mystified to them. You know what I mean? Like they can't, it's like, it's because they understand to a certain degree what Prince is doing, but they don't understand why. You know what I mean? And the reason why he did things the way he did them, why he sang the way, why he spoke the way.
Right. The motivation behind any of it. Sure.
The motivation is not to find out how many people like what you're doing. And I thought it was so I was insulted a little bit. Like, man, and I just told him, you're not asking me the right questions, man. You have to understand that anybody on Prince's level, the Prince doesn't need anybody to tell him how good he is. He knew how good he was. It's like, do you tell Michael Jordan, you're really great, man? No.
Right.
What, like, I'm like, all competitive people, in entertainment want the same thing, which is women winning if they want them. Money,
or men,
fame.
Yeah. I heard you, Kim. I heard you.
I don't know why everybody keeps trying to push on this show to be inclusive. Like some podcasts are meant to be havens away from these societal. See, we have nothing else to talk about. I knew we were going to get here before it was all over.
Only took an hour and 1 minute and 37
Kim, do you want to jump on? Kim, you can.
Do you hear him asking? Kim, you want to jump on? Kim, you would no.
We should have all the wives should start their own podcast.
Oh, that would be great.
To do with any
I would.
The wives should have their own podcast.
Yes,
that's what they're saying now.
Yeah, that would be.
People might actually watch that.
Here too, right? To backtrack to what you were saying before you start getting us all in trouble, Michael, is like I feel like if you've never been a part of the creative process of actually creating music in a finished way, not like I understand there's a lot of people that create music as a hobby, but creating something and actually seeing it through to the end where it makes it to people. If you've never been a part of that process, then I don't see how you could possibly understand. And when you talk about people that don't understand what goes into it and your mindset when you're doing it.
No, that's not really what I mean. I mean, It's insulting to me because it's like we're doing some like fantastic, like it's like a thing that has to be decoded by years of mysticism and the way in which they uphold it, somehow they also diminish it. It's
it wasn't just hard work and motivation.
Yeah, like why does it have to be?
It's all magic, right?
Yeah, it speaks of Chris Rock saying, the white man can the black man has to fly to what the white man can walk to.
Right.
It speaks of that almost, but not quite. It's the fact that it's like, dude, every day is not pure joy just because we play music.
Right.
Like the problem is no sense of proportion on the fan side of things sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
makes sense. It's just all magical days in the studio and fast cars and pretty girls. And sushi dinners and whatever. And you're like, actually.
And Prince was never into that type of thing, really, not from the get-go and not a whole lot during. He always kind of kept to himself.
Seemed like he was more inclined to work than anything else, really.
Yes.
I mean, that's
the thing. And that's what I'm like, dude, what are you, you know how bored Prince would think that was the most unoriginal question he heard in probably 2 weeks. You'd like, well, what did you think of that guy who, Prince would tell you, I didn't know I was supposed to.
Right. Well, what did he think of me?
Something along those lines.
Yeah. Right.
I'm just
like me? All right,
I'm like, dude, Prince, was always playing chess. And it was most dangerous when you didn't know it.
That
You know
makes
what I mean?
right. Then you were in the crosshairs and you
When
didn't
he's
even
just
realize
asking you
it.
questions and he's feeding you rope and you're just going, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Prince. Actually, yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah.
I actually,
Right. You're just getting in the broth while the flames are cranking
yeah,
up.
and you have no idea that you've been flim-flammed. You're telling a person who can use all the information they can gather against you.
Yeah, you're just right.
Against you.
You're just frying yourself.
Like, you know, as time went by, I really loved the dude. But, you know, the problem is you didn't really know what his real motive was.
Yep.
You know? At least that was what it was for me. It's like I don't know if I'm going to get strong-armed into something I don't want to do later.
Yeah.
Or, you know, he's testing my parameters to put me in a place that I don't want to be in. You know, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, life is life. You know, life is real. Almost everybody has an agenda. I don't, you know, begrudge him that, and I don't judge him for it. That's a lot of people to have to orchestrate and keep on the same team, you know, and motivated. So whatever tactics you've developed from reading, you know, psychological warfare and, you know, Machiavelli and, you know, the many things that all these people who are obsessed with power read.
Sure.
So it's just, I'm like, dude, I've been particularly generous with you, and I have answered every question you've ever had, you know, because I like it. I think you're a nice guy, but you can't. I'm not a full trance medium. This is not a seance. Don't ask me what you think Prince would have thought about that. Like you're wasting my time and yours, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you got to come harder.
I understand.
I'm like, you're asking the wrong questions. You don't realize how much information I could give you if you just start thinking in a different way.
Yeah. But how are you going to ask me for somebody else's?
Like, you're just still distracted by the fireworks, dude. There's so much more I can share with you, but you do.
Yeah.
Not with those wide eyes, I can't.
Yeah.
I will say, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
I was going to say, I will say the reason I brought up the question about the Letterman thing is I think we discussed in a previous episode him leaving the show and whether or not it was on good terms. And I've talked to some of the Letterman people that I met ironically through Casey, who Michael also knows. Mm-hmm. And the story that I heard from them is it was on good terms, and he left to do more stuff, you know, adjacent to the Rolling Stones and things like that. And since you and I had talked about it before, I was curious if you and him had talked about it. So that was the only reason I brought that up.
Yeah, he rolled right into all that with Keith Richards. The talk is cheap. And and he was awesome at all that. So, but yeah, you know, I mean, we did actually. Steve and I did a lot more talking on the phone, and I was really surprised at how chill he was about it. Like, we talked for an hour easy.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah, I told him.
But about so many
Sunday morning where he just called me for nothing.
Yeah, like he's that type of dude.
Like, yeah, Sunday morning check in, man. What's happening?
Yeah, like that really means a lot to folks like us.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. I call my dad afterwards. I'm like, I just got off the phone with the drummer from the Rolling Stones. What are you doing?
Right.
You know, he's just like, yeah, that's wild. Like, he knows. You know, he's like, that's wild. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
I know it's wild. That's why I'm calling you.
As an example, like since we've had Dennis on
the barrel
show,
trying to play it close to his chest.
You know, since we've had Dennis on this show, I've gotten a few calls from Dennis out the blue, just like, you know, how are you doing, or how's we talked after Joey DiFrancesco passed, I think was the last time.
Wow.
And it's just what I've learned is like, once people, you know, these people that we put on this high pedestal, like the Michaels of the world, of course, and once they realize that you're somebody that they can trust, sometimes people are just looking for friends.
Yeah.
And they just have to figure out how to get through all the bullshit and all the people that want to get to know them because of they heard Michael on Diamonds and Pearls, they saw Michael with Prince, or Michael's at Soul Asylum. Know who are the people that I can trust that can put aside that you're somebody that they, of significance.
A central sort of plot of land that we share is the realization that the greater the musician, the greater the humility. I don't think that's ever untrue. The greater the musician, the more amazed you are by their generosity and, and their ability to really, share with you and honor you in a present sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
It's always those other dudes who think they've already attained the keys to the kingdom, and it doesn't matter what level we're talking.
Yeah,
church,
that's right.
Punk rock club.
Yeah,
it don't matter.
All the way up and down.
Yeah, wherever you can find musicians.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
The greatest one is the most humble.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I found that most recording producers and engineers are also pretty much the same way. The ones that are just so open and willing to share, and why am I setting that way? Oh, it's because of this and blah blah blah. And no, there's no secrets and no magic tricks. It's just the same thing. They usually the bigger they are, the cooler they actually are. And and it's all the young punks, if you will, with something to prove, who are throwing all that extra attitude around for no reason.
Well, I have a theory, and I know Michael and I have talked about this at length, and maybe on the air before, or maybe not, but that the guys that have the biggest attitudes are the guys that are adjacent to the guys that made it, or the top of the food chain or whatever, but they're not quite there, and they feel like they should be, and they're bitter about it.
Sure.
Because
there's certainly plenty of that. Yeah.
I could name quite a few of those where the people that they're significant enough that people look up to them, but they're not significant enough that they feel like they've made it, and they're a little bit bitter about that, and they're and they feel like they have to prove that they're a big deal, and they do that through having an attitude and being arrogant, and there's a couple guys I could name. Like I said, it's been ironic to me because I call myself a nobody that knows a lot of somebodies. That's who I am. I don't pretend to be anybody. I'm just I don't have enough tours or credits under my belt that I can pretend to be somebody, but I know a lot of somebodies, and it's never ceased to amaze me that I meet the Michaels and the Dennises and the people that that we've had on these drum tributes with David Garibaldi and all these guys that I've read their names in record credits my whole life, and they're the nicest guys in the world. And then I meet the guy that's like the new hot guy that everybody is blowing up, but they're probably not making enough money yet to where they really can really pay their bills doing music yet, but they got the name, and they're so arrogant. And I'm like, how? I'm okay. I know you're good. I know your name is popular right now, but how do you have the right to be this arrogant and Dennis Chambers isn't?
Right.
And that's the thing. Had they ever met somebody of the stature that they consider themselves to be at,
maybe that's it.
They would understand they have it all wrong.
Right. They haven't actually seen the actual light yet. They
Right.
think they're doing it the right way by.
I mean, I don't know if that's always the case though, because I can think of somebody in particular, and I won't say their name on the air. They've met you, Michael, and they idolize you. And when I met them, they didn't know I knew you, and they were a dick to me.
Well, there are some people that are just assholes, and it doesn't, fame or mid-level or high level or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
I have met a very famous drummer that was one of the biggest assholes I've ever met.
Was it the same one that Michael has that story about? Was it Weckel?
No.
Oh,
no,
boy.
This guy's not nearly as good.
Dan likes to drop dime, man.
No, you already said his name on the air, otherwise I wouldn't have done it. You did that in the Calvin episode.
So you've been plotting and scheming?
Saving it up, right? Well, no, I mean, most times.
I can't wait to drop this.
Most guys.
You already did. Don't put this on me.
Why you got a redrop? No, nobody asked for a remix.
Right.
I wanted to see if Jeremy was talking about the same person. I could have just. Okay.
Oh, Jeremy, his whole world was different.
Different guy altogether. But yeah, no, it is true. Most times the the top dogs are the coolest. But occasionally
Every once in a while you'll get
like
one.
I said, some guys are assholes, and a little bit of power and fame just fuels that even further.
And then add a couple grams of cocaine on top of that.
Maybe a little bit of that, and a couple divorces, and a little bit of cash coming out as well as coming in, and
you never know what kind of problems people got.
And then there's that too. You catch some guy on a bad day who missed 2 flights and almost didn't make it, and the rental gear was wrong, and this and that, and maybe they're a little peppery that day, and maybe that's not how it is every day. But you got
me thinking about like all the times I've been running through airports or running through
terrible.
convention centers or what,
Right.
and then everybody wants to stop and talk to you, and there's probably there's probably some people that are fans of me that think I'm a dick because I just didn't have time or energy to stop and talk to them, because you don't. I mean, I can't speak for you guys. I know I like to when I meet people out and about who recognize me from whatever and want to have a conversation. But sometimes I either don't have the time or I don't have the energy. And I hope it comes across as that's what it is instead of that I'm an asshole. But you never know what people perceive.
You can't control it.
Well, people want the experience they want, and if you don't get that to them, if you don't give it to them, then you're an asshole. Like you know what I mean? Unfortunately, and that's. I'm the same way as you, and frankly, kind of shy, and also, frankly, don't have a great poker face, and I'm not great with small talk conversation. Oh, I should try the popcorn. Oh, the popcorn. Okay, yeah, right.
Yep. That's
so
right.
Like, I like to meet people too, but I also kind of like to, hey, great, thank you so much for coming. Okay, right on.
It's funny. I forget that about you, man. But yeah, you'd rather be in observe mode. I've seen that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Some guys go out of their way to make sure they're, easily seeable, so everyone leaving the show can, hey, great job tonight, and blah, blah, blah. And again, if anyone wants to say anything to me, I'm certainly thrilled that anyone wants to take any time out of their day to compliment me or think that I did anything that was in any way impressive. But I definitely don't go out of my way looking for it. And
you really don't.
Happy to end transaction. Great to meet you. I got to head backstage because I'm pretty sure I saw some pepperoni coins and cheddar back there, and I want to make sure they're still back there.
These guys will eat anything you put down.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you remind me of Icky James like that. Like it's like he's the dude you just happen to note it. It's like, oh, yeah. Well, that's what that guy's doing.
Yeah, right.
Now, he'll come on and he'll speak to you if he's got to. But other than that, it's all not all business, but just like I'm just here, I'm just lurking.
Yeah, right. I'm looking around. I like to just kind of have a back against the wall and just kind of look around and just see what everyone else is up to. Sum up the situation and then slip out before I have to deal with too many anythings.
I feel you. Yeah, it's like if I don't have to engage, then I can leave when I get ready.
Right, which is usually why after the show, when everyone else Ryan Smith is out kissing babies and shaking hands and everything else, and me and Bland are back on the bus trying to figure out what's in the fridge, what are we gonna do about some late night dinner, what are you watching tonight?
Did you see that pizza in the front lobby?
Exactly. Is that good? Is that no good?
Man, let's find out. Yeah. Let's see if they got a place around here that maybe some
send someone for something better than that. Let's see if we can get something.
Can we? I'll ante up.
Right.
Okay, we'll buy if you fly.
Right. And God bless the people that want to go meet everyone. And in a way, I wish I had more of that. People would think I'm a friendlier person. I actually am pretty friendly if you get past the. But I don't know you. You don't know me, so we don't.
Yeah, no, JT. I think you've got it right, and you've had it right the whole time. The reality is to be cool. If the solution or if the situation,
sure,
happens to blossom to that point.
Sure.
But I don't think you ever have to seek out.
No. Yeah, I've never really been that guy. Some people are straight to the merch table because that's where you meet all the girls or whatever, and it's like,
but
cool. I'm going to be out on the loading dock talking to a bunch of dudes in camo shorts and New Balance t-shirts about. Or whatever, something.
No, I think you've got. To me, you've got it the right way. It's just don't be where somebody might be looking for you.
Right. That's right.
You know, unless that's where you really want to be at.
Right. Yeah.
And
Sure.
that's the thing. Yeah, Smith has a whole, cottage industry to run.
Well, it's just, there's always 10 cousins and someone's friend and a cousin of a sister of a friend of someone who's on the list.
Where you going, Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a little meet and greet thing. I'm doing.
Me and Bland will be peeking out the windows. Who's he talking to now? Man, oh man! Like what's he doing out there? Right?
Yeah, what? I've never seen somebody.
Ooh, I hope he doesn't bring them in here.
So busy, just don't bring them in. Yeah. Just leave them outside. Shut the door behind you. You shut the door.
Exactly.
I don't trust that guy, man. Should we call security? You think the club's got security yet?
Exactly. Right.
That's up.
Let's get out of here. Right.
Peeping out of the
right. So on the little slide out.
Little slides
windows,
and
listening out the screen.
I don't. You know that guy? Who's that guy? Is he somebody? No, that guy ain't nobody.
Right. Yeah, that's us. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
We're just reeling. But I did want to say, because I saw my old friend Wayne Anthony McFarland.
Hey, Wayne McFarland.
Yeah. I swear, he was at the show on the 20th.
Okay.
At the Uptown Theater. We were in the meet and greet, and he peeked around one side of the line and just kind of waved with this gigantic smile. Mm-hmm. I had no idea he was going in for quadruple bypass surgery.
Oh man, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I guess he just went in, and he must be out already.
He's already on Facebook. Watching us.
Yeah, I'm thinking, even when I heard about it, and that COVID thing I had was just getting started. Mm-hmm. So my mind was in all sorts of places, but the one place it stood for sure, it was like, life can't kill Wayne McFarland. Mm. Life ain't gonna get him. Wayne is gonna leave here abducted or something. Like, he's not gonna die like a natural man's death.
Fair enough. All right, he's going up in the mothership. Huh?
And that's all I can really say about it. And that's just the feeling, I've had about him pretty much the whole time I've known him. And but it's funny because he's about the half. What's the $3 million man at this point? He's got all new parts, and just no signs of slowing down. He looked great. It goes also to show you don't really know what's going on with people. Yeah. But God bless you, Wayne. I had no doubt that you would recover because God is faithful. And so I appreciate you just even chiming in here, Wayne. You know that I love you very much. And I apologize for being despondent. But man, my laptop was closed. I was feeling so bad. This COVID had me bad, Wayne McFarland.
Something had me for the last few days too. I don't know what you've been going through, but
okay.
I feel you.
But I was thinking about you, man, and I know I pulled a prayer in at some point. It was probably during one of my midnight delusions. But I know that I did put a good thought on your name. So thank you, Wayne, for still being here. Yeah. We have to make a real concerted effort to see each other again and soon. I just wanted to say that much. But
I didn't know you had COVID, Michael. I'm glad that you didn't have any serious
it's not
or anything.
It's not official, and of course my wife was like, "Well, you want to go to the doctor? You want to take a test?"
Nope.
Or maybe JT.
Nope. That's where I'm at. I don't know if I had it just now.
That's where you're at. That's where I'm at with it.
I might have had it.
How about a nope?
I was sick.
No, thank you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I got really sick one time in the past year or so, and I took a test and it was negative.
Okay.
I've been around some people that have tested positive, and so yeah, I mean the tests these days are much easier than the ones back, like when I initially got sick, where they had to stick something all the way up your nose, and it was just so unpleasant.
They don't have to put it all the way up your nose still?
The one, the test you get now, you just basically, no, I'm trying to remember now. I think there's ones that you can spit on it, but then there's also ones where I think you still put something in your nose, but you just kind of do the outside of it. They don't have to go all the way up like the ones used to be. But yeah, they have self-home tests you can just send for, and they'll send them to you, and they're free, and you do it yourself.
Oh, so, I'm sure we got some, or we could get some if I had.
Yeah.
Huh?
You want to test now?
Why? It's
yeah, let's do it on air. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll see if I got one left. We can all do it.
She turns into she turns into a.
Right. It's a segment. We'll do it every week.
Yeah, Rachel Maddow. As long as she ain't got to be on camera.
Oh, where did we lose Jeremy? Oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah. Weird.
I thought we added somebody. Daphne, no, I did not lose my taste, love. How you doing, Daphne? But I did lose my appetite. I was just, I tried to eat something and it'd be like, once you've rolfed, it's like your stomach just is like, hey, man.
Yeah.
What are you putting in there?
Yeah. Right. That better be like water or 7-Up.
That feels a little spicy.
I was telling Michael before we went on air that these past 4 years since the week before I was hospitalized, I've had some type of stomach issues since then. Some months, weeks, days have been worse than others, but there have been weeks at a time where I barely ate just because, if you can't keep anything down, sometimes you don't even want to try.
Yeah.
And but glad that whatever you had then, Michael, wasn't that serious, and you were able to come out of it because I would have worried if you told me, so I guess I'm glad you didn't.
I got a couple days till 100%, I think.
Yeah,
but I'm here. I have better mastery over my breathing, and
sounds like you had something like whatever it was I had earlier this year, where I tested negative for COVID. It was probably just a really bad flu. But it was
that's what I was thinking also. It's like, it may. I thought these are flu symptoms.
Yeah, because just the COVID mutates, so does the flu. I'm going to exaggerate and say 1 million, but there's several new strains every year.
That's the thing too, right? And all that stuff is always changing, and it's easy to be like, oh, I'm sick. It must be COVID or whatever. It's like, well, there was sick before COVID.
There was sick
flu. There was other things before it was all just COVID.
You can still get sick from other things.
Right. Yeah. That's why I didn't jokingly about the nope on the testing, but that is kind of why I didn't test. It's just like whether it's the flu or COVID, whatever we're calling it, it feels like the flu. Yeah. It's gonna go by like the flu. So I don't know.
And thank God that COVID has become something more like the flu, where people are surviving it. It's not like what I went through, or a lot of other people went through, where if somebody got COVID, you worried it was a death sentence. Nowadays, it's it seems like it's more like a bad flu. That's I'm sure the combination of it mutating and people building up immunity and people being vaccinated and us now having treatments for it. So, I mean, it's definitely, I don't worry the way that I used to, but it's still kind of one of those things where you hear that word and you go, uh-oh,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But
especially, I can't imagine with your experience. I got COVID and I was sick for 5 days or whatever. You had a life-changing, real
we still don't know why.
Right.
We still don't know why that, other people that got sick around the same time I did, why I got so much sicker. Nobody has the answer to that yet, and we may never know.
The government, man. It's the
government, man. They were definitely plotting against me. I'm the one that they're trying to stop.
Man.
Yeah. They heard about the two Leslies? Nah.
3 Leslies.
Right.
No. They knew we were going to do this podcast. That's what it is. They were trying to put a stop to this.
That's right. Right. You've been trying to spread too much good information.
Right.
Shut Spiffy down. He's got too many ears.
They're back at that music politics?
Yeah. It says politics right in the name. Shut it down.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
they're misspelling it. They're misspelling it.
Of course.
It's more that hip hop. That ebonics.
Yeah. Or like Prince, where he put the number instead of the letter, and the
numbers. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I hate you.
That, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or
was
yeah.
that Joni Mitchell that said Prince would send her letters like that, and they thought he was like an alphabet killer or something? Like, who's this fan?
By the way, speaking of legendary Michael Bland moments, I don't feel like "I Hate You" gets enough credit, both as a song as well as with the video, with you being the judge. That is both. Not only is that is a wholly underrated ballad, and that's also a great video. You know, Judge Bland. Have you ever seen that video, Jeremy?
I believe I have. It's been a long time,
Yeah,
so I can't think of it
people
off
should
top.
go look it up. Michael's got the judge's robe and the gavel, and
pull it up.
you know, it's yeah. The people don't talk about that song. People don't talk about that album, and that was a great album, the Gold album. I'm sure that was a victim of the Warner Brothers battle.
Yeah, it was a. By the time it came out, it was. I mean, it really had. I wouldn't say that record didn't age well, but I think it was just the steam was out.
Yeah,
the steam was out then, and it was just kind of it was soggy. I think it's one of the best records we made.
Sonically, like, because a lot of the stuff that Prince made in the earlier years, sonically, like, you could tell he was just trying to get the music as quickly as possible and engineering a lot himself, and so the audio quality, to talk about engineering, wasn't as good as it could have been if he was being meticulous. But by the time he got to that Gold album, that record sonically is as good as any record. It really it sounds good. The quality of the engineering sounds as good as the quality of the music, which isn't always the case with some of the Prince records. It's a great sounding record and had some great songs on it.
I hear the voice of Tommy Barbarella being channeled through my brain. That record is way too compressed. It just is. Like, it's when you hear it, there's no dynamics, man. Like, it just got cooked. It's like cooking your veggies till all the nutrients just.
I guess I have to listen to the whole record again. I'm thinking specifically of "I Hate You." That song has dynamics.
We're playing dynamically, but there's so much compression going on that, like, everything is just pushed.
But that's also what music sounded like on the radio at that time, and today to a degree as well. So you know.
Okay, I'm just telling you how it all kind of comes back to me.
It's tripping me out. I'm watching this video right now in the background, and you're playing the drum set that we currently have set up at the rehearsal space right now in the video. So I just saw the drums and I was like, I was just messing with those drums last night. Like, what the? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're having a little thing. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you're playing those drums in this video. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it's the same kit. Sure looks like it is.
It is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Funny.
That's kind of crazy. I mean, I didn't realize that's a long time to keep a kit.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's something that Michael just kind of unearthed them from the archives recently to check them out. But I knew they were from back in the day. I didn't know exactly when, but I'm seeing them now. So it must have been around this time.
I guess, come to think of it, you've had that same house. You haven't moved, so it makes sense that you would keep stuff. You know, no reason to really get rid of it.
That's not really any kind of guarantee, because sometimes I just all of this has got to go. But no, that kit was sitting in storage for a while, and the friend of mine who was storing them was like, "Hey, I've cleaned my storage space out. Your drums are in here. Do you want them?
Oh, I got it.
I said, okay.
Oh, yeah, right.
So he just brought them over and threw them in the garage. And I started thinking while I was out there one time waiting on Pete, I'm like, I should have these refurbished a little bit. Like, they should go to the shop. Like, I always remember this kit sounding good to me.
Yeah.
And that kit was in that video. That kit was in a video for the song Superhero that the Steels did for the movie Blank Man.
Oh, sure. Yep.
It was in that video. It was in the I Hate You video.
Yeah, that's definitely them. I just want this song go by again. For anyone who's curious, we're talking about a white Sonar kit. This is before you were with Yamaha, I'm assuming.
You want to screenshot it and send, and
Yeah.
either you can put it on the screen or send
You
it to
know,
me
I
and
don't
I'll
know
put
if
it on
you
the screen.
I don't know if you have it or have it handy, but the photo recently of Bland and Sonny from the rehearsal space where he's standing by the white drum set, that's the same drum set.
Where's the photo? I'll go look for it. On Michael's
it was
Facebook
like
or
it was like a press photo that was getting used kind of around the Brothers single recently. Otherwise,
let me see if it's on the Brothers page then.
And the only other time I remember us using the kit was, and I don't know why, but maybe that was the kit we took out to LA while we did some of those things. But it was we played like the VH1 Fashion and Music Awards, and we played P Control.
Okay.
And I played that kit on that performance. So.
Yeah, that was just funny to see. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, that kit.
Yeah, that kit.
It's interesting to me because I would think that if you're shooting a video, you would just show up and a kit would be provided for you, especially if you're not actually recording and it doesn't really matter how it sounds. It's just there to look good. But you would actually bring your own kit to these shoots.
I mean, I don't have to tell you the magnitude of how much money got spent.
Oh man.
Well, that's why I would think there'd be one just there.
No.
That would actually be the cheaper way, right? It would be more expensive to like box up and ship stuff from here to there, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that it's your stuff, or I mean, who knows, right? I can imagine the money.
Well, the other thing is that we didn't always know what all we were going out to do.
Right. Be prepared for anything. Send anything we might need.
Send the kit.
Right.
You know, this is the kit that's going to be in the video.
Right.
I mean, I'm saying we maybe did one of those two other things that same week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Prince's gear had to show up. He wasn't going to play rental.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So if his stuff's sending, then send everything.
So
send Michael
that means the purple axe is coming.
Right.
The purple axe is coming. The wireless MIDI trigger.
Right.
The what else is coming?
The white dolphin bass has got
white dolphin. Yeah. It all. Yeah.
Going.
Back then, the gear was the show. So,
man, it's funny that you say that. I mean, back then it was true. I think it still can. And for the right, not for every circumstance, but for the right situation, I think it's still true. Like I was thinking about Soul Asylum and that same thing the other day. Like the fact that Perner's playing early 70s Tellys and like old Marshalls, the gear is part of the show. It would not be the same. I mean, he could play a reissue. They make that same guitar in that color. Fender could send a bunch of brand new ones, but that's not. And it's like the Keith Richards thing. Like Keith Richards not going to go out with a brand new guitar. He's going to play like old. I don't know. There is something to that. The gear is the show. And I think I'm all right with that. The more I get into it, the more I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure I want to have the classic things, the stuff from the 60s and 70s, the stuff, you know.
Well, I mean, it definitely makes sense to me if you're actually recording audio or even if you're just playing live that you want to have like, I would never show up somewhere with a guitar I hadn't played before. I want it to be one I'm familiar and comfortable with. But for shooting videos, you know, my experience has always been, you know, you tell them what gear you want and they'll have it there, but it's mainly there just for the look of it, so it's not tuned your way or whatever, you know. So like that's what kind of threw me off there. Is like, man, they ship, but Michael, I get what Michael's saying, where you don't know if you're going to be shooting a video, if you're going to be recording in the studio, if you're going to be playing live. You might be doing all these things. Got to have the stuff you're comfortable playing just in case.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, and that's what made Prince different than a lot of people. You know, it's like he was always looking for a way to keep everything sort of tied in and together. I mean, it's funny because now that I think about it, like it was a supreme advantage to have the same band you're cutting with in the studio be the same cats that you go on the road with.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, of course.
Almost never the case these days.
Yeah, that's why it's like we get on when the other night or the other couple days when we were rehearsing, that band sounds like those records.
I just remember in my younger days, I used to be so mad because I've always been somebody that's been hired for more studio and live recording stuff than like tours and stuff. I've done both, but I got hired for the recording stuff first. And I used to get so mad when I was younger because I'd do the record and then they'd hire a different band for the road. And I was like, I'm right here. Why can't you hire me for the road? And if they dignified me with an explanation, they would try to explain to me that it's so much cheaper to use whoever is available in this city and that city and this thing. But why would you not want the guy who played the record? But sometimes it usually comes down to money and convenience. And I didn't realize that there wasn't just an unlimited budget to fly me to whatever city because I played the record.
I think it's funny. That totally makes sense. And as like the young musician, you get angry about that. As you get older, you're like, please just hire me for the record and take some young kid on the road. I don't want to go on the road. Right? It's like it flips over. Yeah. Oh, no. Don't hire me for the road.
I don't want to be in your life like that.
Yeah, right. I want to make this record. Well, good luck.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Especially learning that half of those road gigs, if you get paid, but when you factor in the expenses and everything, you ultimately lose money on it. And it's just I probably end up making more by doing the record and staying home than if I went out on the road. Yeah. But the young guy in me wanted to just I wanted to be there every night. That was important to me.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
Oh, it's amazing how things have changed.
Yeah.
See, wisdom, getting older, all that, finding the right battles to actually fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then again, it's a little different with a group like you guys have where you're not just a hired guy for the record, you're a member of Soul Asylum. So if I go to see Soul Asylum, I want to see Michael Bland, I want to see JT, I want to see Ryan. I don't want to see subs,
Of course not.
Sure.
Of course.
So there comes a point in time where it is in the interest to make sure that the guys are there, even if it costs more, because you're going to sell more tickets if people know that the people they're coming to see are there. The difference in my case is nobody's coming to see me.
Sure. Yeah.
I was Otis.
People definitely like to see some type of consistency, and I'm the same thing for me. Like I don't mind if someone changes or if you got to play a gig and you need a sub or whatever. But if it's one of my favorite bands or whatever, I want to see at least a handful of familiar faces up there, and not who's he going to be up on stage this time or whatever. It's like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's funny. When you're young, you want to get all those gigs, and the older you get, the more you're like, oh man, so who's gonna go tour this thing when you guys are like, you're trying to rule yourself out. You're saying it before they even ask. So who's gonna take on the road? Making sure they know it's not gonna be you. Right.
That kind of circles us back to the Soul Asylum record, which we started talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the people that watch and listen to this are dedicated Soul Asylum fans. Do we have a date when that's coming out?
No, not yet.
I don't think officially. I mean, they're certainly hoping to have it out before the end of the year. But
when it comes out, do we want to do a special episode with all the band members and maybe Steve if he'd join and talk about it like we did a couple years ago?
I don't know if we could necessarily sign Steve up for anything, but
yeah,
you
never know. I wouldn't attempt with Dave at all.
Well, there's that. So
Dave is, you know why? And I love Dave. But I think that sometimes he bites off more than he can chew, because he really doesn't like to disappoint people. He really likes to. Yeah, hey, let's. Like, he means it.
He's a true artist for the fans.
He really is, man. But I just think that I feel sometimes like I'm asking for too much.
Yeah, I understand. And God bless Dave for the fact that like this whole thing and things like this where people get together on Zoom or through their devices and talk on a page that's brought. It's just not his world. He doesn't watch stuff like this. He will occasionally participate in something like this when asked by management to do so, and
he doesn't,
and he'll give it his best. But like staring into a laptop and waiting for the lag and just the whole life that comes with this is like he would prefer not to, and he's probably right, frankly. So it's like let him have it, let him have it, and he's earned the right to be like, you know what, I don't need to be on it.
Yeah,
things,
Yeah.
you know. Not that he would like again, if you or we asked him, he would be here in a heartbeat. However,
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
You know,
right.
Just because he's that guy. But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I've seen enough situations where I asked him and he said yes, and then I wish I hadn't.
Yeah, because you don't want to make him feel like he's got to wiggle or whatever.
Once he's not having a good time,
yeah,
it's like then you feel bad. It's like, yeah, dude, you know what? You're crazy. You got a lot on your mind, and you could be converting all that craziness into great songs right now.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to be doing.
I would rather him use his energy for the creative good instead. I also just feel like he's earned it. He's earned the right at this point to be like, if and when he wants to talk about things, great. If he doesn't want to do any press, then you know what? He shouldn't have to. He will, but you know, it's like you do get to a point where it's just like he doesn't need to go out and sell the record. He made the record he wanted to make, and that's the important part. You know.
Yeah, that's yes. Well said, JT.
Well, since we originally started out this mini series talking about engineering, who's mixing and mastering the record? Do we know?
That is all done already. So
it's all been finished. It was
Nico Bolas, who engineered the record, mixed it with Dave and Steve out at Electric Lady, and then it was mastered by Greg Calby shortly thereafter, right? I think Calby did it.
I don't remember that name, but
I could be wrong. I think
you're probably right, because at some point, as soon as we were finished tracking, dude, I went into isolation.
Yeah. But yeah, the long and short of it is, it's mixed, it's mastered, it is, I think, sequenced. If you ask Steve, it's sequenced.
Yeah.
Was there any? Oh, go ahead.
No, so short of release date and all of the other details, the most of it is done. It's just all the business now.
Was there anything that was done differently or uniquely from an engineering standpoint on this record? I know when we started out talking, Michael was talking about how a lot of things about this record were different.
Sure. I mean, different or unique just to the records that have been made recently, for sure. I mean, it was much more of a live feel, not only because we played live, but because like bleed was introduced intentionally into the room. Like, so where Michael's drums were set up in the live room, there was 2 different drum sets set up for specific sounds, kind of one more traditional and dead and one a little more bright and lively. And so 2 distinct setups, and then everyone had amps in isolation like you normally would, but then we also, both Ryan, Dave, and myself, all had amps, small combo amps in the room. So there was gonna definitely be bleed into the drum mics. Like it was all glued together from the outset with the desire and concept of we're gonna get these takes together. I think maybe twice in 4 days did I actually do a punch where it was just, we're just gonna fix a bass note right here. It wasn't we're gonna just get your thing. It was like, not yet, fellas, one more, you know.
So from a technical standpoint, so you, like, as a guitar player, so you come out of the guitar, let's say the pedal board, and then you go into a Y cable into 2 amplifiers, and one's in the room and one's in.
So you have your big full rig out in isolation with microphones in it, and then right at your feet, the little tiny, Ryan had a 60s Fender Champ.
Okay.
Dave had a little 50s Tweed Fender Champ, and those were mic'd as well.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, and so the big rigs were isolated and mic'd. Little rigs in the room, also with a microphone. Steve basically wanted it. We all still wore headphones, but he wanted it so you could almost not wear headphones and have just enough. The amps weren't loud, the bass amp wasn't loud, and there was a small baffle between the drums and it, but it was on in the room, and with headphones off, you could hear it. I think there was a couple songs where Ryan maybe did play without headphones because he could hear just enough guitar. He's standing right next to Michael.
Yeah.
So no shortage of drums. We're not listening to click track anymore, so you don't need headphones for that.
Was there a click track or no click track?
Never. No.
Okay.
It got turned off early in the day on day 1, and it was made pretty clear by Steve that there would be no reason to turn it back on.
I mean, with Michael, you really don't need one in the first place, I would think. I would say Michael's got better timing than just about anybody.
That
well,
helps.
God bless you.
It helps quite a bit.
I certainly had to prove it for that that 4 days.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and that was also something that there wasn't a big long discussion leading up to the
this was not about that.
That happened at the studio. We went from trying it with a click to let's not use the click. I'm like, okay, well that just made a big difference, you know.
Yeah, Michael, were you hitting or were you, you know, how hard were you hitting the drums for this?
At that point, mercilessly.
Right.
Right. I mean, I know we've talked about and even within this series with Cody about the benefits of playing soft as a drummer versus the benefits of playing hard, but definitely for a rock record like Soul Asylum, there's definitely a certain energy that comes when you're beating the snot out of them.
Yeah, when you have to compete with a couple of half-stack Marshalls and a big Ampeg SVT, you got to punch through. You know,
the point is having a sense of proportion. That's all.
Right.
So whatever the party calls for, that's what it calls for. I wasn't doing it because that's how I felt about it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It was, or it wasn't done without intention, I guess I'd say. And not on all the songs. I didn't, you know, absolutely pulverize things into pudding.
You also didn't need to bash because of the way Nico and Steve had the drums set up and the way they sounded in the headphones. Everything was so explosive that even just breathing on the drums, you're like, whoa, okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Things are wide open. Things are bright. There is not a lot of small, detailed sounds. Or let me just get a pinch more hi-hat. It's like you turn on the drum fader and it's like, those are the drums. Like you cannot escape them.
Well, that's almost how Cody would have it sounding in the house at Bunkers. Is Michael wouldn't have to play hard and they would sound in the house like he was... You know,
sure, right.
Brandy's asking what mics were used on the amps. Were you paying attention to that? I know you weren't actually engineering this session.
Well, it was nothing. I don't think it was anything like real shocking. I think that was the thing I learned about. So,
did we lose Jeremy? Right in the middle of answering a question. Come back, Jeremy.
Come back, Jeremy.
Oh, you got me. Am I back yet?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of not eye-opening, but the thing that I really noticed with Nico was that there is no like, oh wow, he's using this crazy microphone I've never seen before in this position it's just kind of the usual stuff. Like I think there was just kind of like 57s in front of the small amps for sure, and probably a Shure 57 and maybe one other nicer thing next to it on the big amps. But drums too, like no crazy techniques, no laser pointers and tape measures. I mean, these guys are definitely like make records old school and put mics in front of stuff and look at it and go, that should be pretty much where it should go, and I'll go in the other room and turn up the fader, and if it doesn't sound right, I'll move it. But short of that, it was very simple as far as all that. Not a lot of over concern, not a lot of let me hear that snare drum for another 20 minutes while I was just like, all right, that drum sounds cool, that drum doesn't sound cool, switch it out. How's everyone doing? How are the headphones doing? As soon as we can all hear everything, it's time to go. Like there was not a lot of detailed, never stopping momentum for any type of engineering detail.
Well, and you guys can correct me because you guys are both more knowledgeable about this than I am, but I feel like these days there's a lot of overstating in terms of what equipment you need, because like sure. I remember people, you know, somebody made a post recently about how like if you're going to cut vocals, you got to have these preamps and you got to have these mics and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I've given the example in the past where like I've cut a few things out of my home studio here where my wife has done background vocals for something Michael's producing. And I used whatever mic we had on hand, and at the very least, Michael never complained. And if it wasn't good enough, he would have, you know. And I don't have I don't have Neumann's. I've got you know whatever I have is probably a in the $100 to $300 range of microphones.
Sure.
And whatever preamp I have is whatever came with the interface, and it's not going to be a bottom of the barrel interface, but it's not, I didn't spend $1,000 on an interface. I've got probably a $300 to $500 interface,
Sure. Sure.
and it's just 9 times out of 10, knowing what to do with the equipment is better than having the very, very top end equipment. So many records have been made with 57s and 58s, and
absolutely. I mean, I've certainly come across both perfect examples of a guy with an insane checkbook and a fancy studio with every toy you can think of in it, and everything you hear come out of there sounds like absolute trash. And then you got the weird rocket science buddy who's got like garbage equipment that's duct taped together, and his records sound
Sonny's bass.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it really does become like wizard, not the wand. Like, sure, if you give me better tools, maybe I'll get you even more. But like, I definitely have found, I'm sure it's true with live engineers too, for record makers, as I work more and more to just try to become a mixer, like I'm realizing more and more like the hammer is just a hammer. Like ultimately it's gonna sound like whatever I'm trying to make it sound like. Whatever tools I may or may not have to get it there, it's like it's gonna take on whatever aesthetic I'm trying to achieve, or however I hear it, because that's what I do. So that's all you can really hire me for. It doesn't matter if I have the certain plug-in or not, because the sound will come from, I won't stop messing with the sound until it achieves whatever my ear considers its parking space. So I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I love equipment. I'm surrounded by it. And I have gear acquisition syndrome just as much as anybody else. But I remember an engineer.
Gear acquisition syndrome?
Yeah. You've never heard that before?
Yeah.
No.
Or guitar acquisition syndrome, or bass acquisition syndrome. Yeah. That's definitely a common acronym.
A big mentor of mine, engineer, producer, mixer, this guy Jim Scott, record maker, Michael's worked with him all the time. He's got an amazing studio, an amazing collection of instruments and equipment, and the console, and kind of all the stuff you would want. It checks all the boxes. And I was hanging with him one day and just kind of like looking around at this warehouse full of stuff. I'm like, man, you got everything, and he kind of looking around too, like nodding his head like, you're right. But he, sipping his drink, and he goes, yeah, but none of it means anything if there's not someone in here with a cool song. And it was just kind of like,
well, I hear that.
Well, there it is. You know what I mean? Like all the equipment in the world none of it matters. And a bad microphone has never stopped a great performance. Like
never.
The great performance will still shine. You'll figure it out. Michael has sent me stuff that he's recorded into his laptop microphone. And we just make it work because it's like what happened was cool. And why go back and redo it? Like if it's going to work, it's going to work. Like one could say like, oh, well, you need to do that again and set up your condenser microphone and make sure it has a pop filter and it's 6 inches away. And it's like, why? If you play it back and go, wow, this is awesome, then it's awesome. Like, so, yeah, it's, like I said, feel free to get better stuff and try to make better things with it. But
I'm going to give you a better vocal this time. I'm going to actually move into the next room and use the Neumann.
But I have seen the flip side of that, where there's that whole coming back to gear acquisition, or whether it's a roadblock between getting some work done, or that whole like, if I just had this, then I could make that thing. It's not true. I've done it. I think maybe we've all done it. I have certainly done it. My mixes will finally start to sound great if I could just get this one. No, it's just not true. It will only come through more practice and getting better and more realization that you are the final tool, and all the other tools are just accessories
to
help you do the job. Right. But
I mean, it's like the whole thing with guitars.
You are the final tool.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
It's like the thing with guitars where two people can pick up the same guitar and it sounds completely different. You know,
Yeah,
where
a lot of it, yeah, it defies explanation because we don't really understand it.
Some people can just it takes me back to, I think it got told on your Clyde Stubblefield tribute show. I know I've heard it told many times. Butch Vig talks about they were going to get Clyde to come in and play a couple things on one of the early Garbage records. And he got there early and threw a drum set up, and he was there by himself. So he's putting up the drums and putting up the mics and running in the control room and trying to kind of like get a one-man drum sound. And he's like, I really didn't have time to do it. I went in there and recorded a couple things and myself and went in the control room and played it back. And I was like, oh no, these drums sound terrible. You know, I didn't have, he's like, and then Clyde sat down and they sounded incredible.
Yeah.
Didn't touch anything. Clyde just got a sound out of him. He sat down, figured out what he had and what he didn't have to work with.
Yeah.
Adjusted accordingly and was getting a sound. You know?
There's a certain type of musician and that like sometimes it comes out of necessity, not having a lot of money, or you're on gigs or tours or even churches where they just didn't have good equipment. Sometimes it's not out of necessity, sometimes it's just who you are. But there's a certain type of musician where you're used to playing terrible gear, and so it doesn't matter how terrible the gear is, you get a great sound out of it. Clyde was one of the, because I knew Clyde quite well.
Sure.
Clyde did not invest.
Put me down on anything. I'm gonna sound like me. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Some guys can do that. Right. Yeah.
A good example, Michael, is Eric from my church. Eric grew up playing with his dad and playing in church, and neither one of those were like big. He always had the worst of drums. And so, like, he's used to terrible, like, other people sit down at a set at church and they can't get a good sound out of it because it needs this and it needs that. But he doesn't want to fix all those things. He knows, and he gets a great, you've seen the videos of him playing at church. It sounds great. And half his cymbals are chewed up, and we'll buy him new cymbals if he wants. Nah, man, I'll make these work. But he's one of those guys that's used to getting a great sound out of equipment that nobody else can get a good sound out of, and that's one of his gifts. And there's a whole archetype of musician like that. I'm not that guy. If I need my guitar to be set up well, or the organ to be, you know, functioning fully, otherwise my playing suffers. But you know, because I'm not comfortable, I'm not hearing what I want to hear, and it throws me off. But there's some guys that they've got that superpower.
That's it. I want to be more like the superpower. I'm the same way. I kind of, because I am a nerd and have gotten into the technical side of things, like I want to make sure my bass is set up a certain way. I want the action to be a certain way. I know the difference. But I love those dudes who are just like, yeah, that one. I don't know. Throw me that one. Like, I make the music, not this thing. None of that shit matters. Like, I don't like, I love that. I love when people can be that way. I, unfortunately, I'm a little more like, oh, is this crackling? Hang on, maybe we should change this cable. Like, I'd much rather, like, you know, fix all that stuff. But I'm always impressed when I see someone who's just like, just give it to me. Oh, wow, this is broken. This doesn't work. Okay, fine, whatever. And now I sound incredible because, you know,
I've
again,
heard a story
you
about
make the
Jubu
music.
like that. To bring it back to Jubu, Michael, that back when he was at Berklee School of Music, there was this guitar that was kicking around Berklee that nobody could play because the action was so terrible, and they couldn't, no matter how they adjusted it, it couldn't have good action. It was just a piece of shit guitar that probably had been just banged around too many times, and just nobody could play this guitar. And then Jubu shows up and picks up the guitar, and it sounds like $1 million. Some guys just are you one of those guys, Michael, or are you somebody whose equipment's got to be right?
I'm one of those guys. Cody told me I was one of those guys.
that you can make anything sound good.
Cody says he said, B, when I sit down and try to tune your drums, like I never know what I'm doing. You know, it's like I don't play like you, so they don't respond the same kind of way.
It's true. I mean, I play the drums, and I've had, you know, I've been able to not only play with Michael, but I've got to just record Michael, watch him play. I think I have a pretty good understanding of how Michael plays the drums, what velocities he plays at. If I'm doing a line check for our sound guy, Colin, I don't hit the kick drum the way I hit the kick drum. I try to hit it the way Michael hits it because I think I know. but I can't make the snare drum sound like Michael does. It can be the exact same stick. I can be pretty much in the same velocity. I think I've got the rim shot to stick head rate. All the things are close, but it's not the same hit. And and I can tune the drums and hit them and get a sound and do the whole thing, and then watch him sit down, and they just sound different.
There's something
they just sound different when he plays.
There's something so intangible about music, because what is it different about you hitting the drum? If you hit the same drum in the same place with the same velocity that he does, why does it sound different? If I pick up the same guitar and I play the same chord that you play, and I'm applying the same pressure with my fingers that you play, why does it sound different? There's no explanation other than magic. But,
well, yes.
Like Michael says, music is like how do you say it? You play music like your face. Like there's things about you that you will not be able to change. And that's what makes you you.
And those same things can be the things that set you apart in a positive way.
Sure.
And that's the truth, is that your sound is kind of like your face. It's like you can do things to kind of, augment or dress it up, or,
right. Work on things to restructure this, or do it, right.
Yeah. Find a new, lotion.
Right. Get a nose job or nose trimmer or whatever.
You can do, but it's not going to change the basic situation. And I think that much in the way that, for me, it's a sound that I've learned to get to. And I also know when I'm right in it, because it's the snare stroke that makes JT go from bending downward and doing some stuff on his pedal board to immediately
a reaction. There's a reaction that happens.
Nobody gets more affected than Dave and JT.
Yeah.
I'm
a drummer first, so I think I still hear it.
Wham! Perner gets in his pocket looking for those. He goes
right for the earplugs. Yeah.
He drops everything else he's doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, that's where it is.
And me and Bland usually make eye contact, either going, "Yep, that snare is doing it," or tune that snare up a little bit. We don't even say anything. It's just like, yeah.
So I wonder now, because between that and then what Michael said, where Cody told him that he was one of those guys, now I'm wondering how much of it is perception too. Because again, to me, I'm one of those guys who I feel like that's absolutely not me. When I pick up a guitar and it doesn't feel right, it throws me off. I wonder if there's other people that see me as the guy who can make certain things sound good. Because
I would bet there would be. I'm sure there would be. I mean, I would assume that, just like anything, there are always different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So there is someone at a lower level than you that's looking up to you the way you look up to someone who's at the next level above you, and so on.
But the real question is, have you played on enough other people's equipment to be being used to that shootout or that chase?
As an organist, absolutely. You go from church to church to church, and hardly any of them maintain their equipment, and you have to go get on an organ that, like, to you is just horrible. And then like I said, sometimes other people are like, "Oh my God, you made it sound so good," and I'm like, "Man, that did not sound good to me. These keys didn't work. These pedals didn't work. These drawbars didn't work. I only did half the stuff I wanted to do, but other,
Well, now we're back to the central issue. How much of this are you doing for you? How much of this are you doing for the music?
And then it ties back into that overarching, like, goal of control musically, right? So if you know that these three drawbars don't work and that key's out, can you just navigate around it?
That's what you gotta
do. And almost enjoy it in a weird way. Like, well,
I don't know that I can enjoy it, but it's
know?
also kind of like if you're a guitar player and the string breaks and you don't have a guitar to swap out or a string to change until the next song.
Right.
What do you do to get to the end of the song?
Right. You start revoicing chords on the fly or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it's terrifying, but at some point, I suppose, if you get to that level of control, you're like, ooh, okay, well, here we go. Or like when someone calls a song at a rehearsal and it's like, yeah, you know what? Let's try that in D. 2, 3, 4, and you're like, oh, okay. Guess we're gonna transpose right now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because somebody was just commenting on one of my YouTube videos that, like, in church, not everybody that sings sometimes is a singer. You'll have somebody get up during a prayer or during something else, and they'll sing a song, and like it's supposed to be in one key, and they end up in another key, or they transition in this. I think there's a video on my YouTube channel where one of the deacons opened up service and started in one key and finished in another one, and you have to find them and follow. And people are like, how do you do that as a musician? But that's just what you got to do, And it's just part of, sometimes you're in those positions where you're working with people that you have to. I can't even tell you, like, how many times in church situations where you rehearse it in this key, you put it on the song list in this key, and then it ends up in a completely different key in execution.
Yeah, that's a little.
You got to learn. You got to transpose on the fly.
That's
and don't you dare, if you're on an instrument that has a transpose button, don't use it.
No, you don't get to use it. Yeah.
No.
I use the transpose button every once in a while on the bass. I'll bring a bass that's just tuned to E flat or whatever.
Well, that's different though. That doesn't count.
I want that note. I'm cheating.
Well, that's what I've tried to explain to people, the difference between using a transpose button on a digital keyboard versus either a capo or down tuning on a guitar, or for that matter on a bass. The reason you do it on a guitar or a bass is because there's certain notes you can't physically obtain without making changes.
Right, or certain chord shapes that you just can't get unless you put that capo there or whatever. Sure.
Yeah, it's not the same thing as So that's been an argument in musician circles for years. Is transposing cheating? And then why, if the transposing is cheating, why isn't tuning your guitar down or your bass down or using a capo cheating? Right. And people, if you don't play all three instruments, people often don't understand.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well,
anything else you guys want to cover? We've certainly run the gamut of topics today.
I think we held our own pretty good. I think
absolutely.
We avoided what could have been a very could have been a long winding road, boy.
Well, it always is, but that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, it's just, at some point this subject is going to come up, and we're going to have to face it.
Which one?
Oh.
Which one? I'm confused now too. Stay tuned next week, folks. Come back next week to find out what Michael's talking about.
Right.
The fact that, what I was going to say earlier, maybe I got it out and I don't remember, but just about how there is no place. The fact that there is nowhere where that is an acceptable place for you to let down that hypersensitive goalie in your brain, goalie or referee. Like, as you move forward through, like, because this is a podcast, we can be certainly held up to ridicule. Sure. People can castigate us and get upset about whether we have misengendered or been, in a toxic, masculinized way, have been forgetful of those who are not necessarily like us, but are us. Like, just the whole idea that, I understood it. I get it. It's just is there no place? Are there no circumstances that exist anywhere where you can have a conversation on your own terms?
I think, first of all, I think as a whole, I think Music Politics has done pretty well, where when these episodes have been out to posterity, like you can find our very first one on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere, like, and I have gotten very little negative feedback about anything we've said, even when we've misspoke or made missteps. Because that was one of my things I used to worry about, even putting music on YouTube, is that I'd make a mistake and then a million people would make fun of my mistake. And for the most part, we've received nothing but positivity back. So as a whole, I think we've done pretty well. I think a big part of it is the that the people that are familiar with us, because I know you're thinking at least in one case where somebody has criticized us using the term sound guy, which is not necessarily gender neutral, even though it's intended to be, and stuff like that. And I don't think that criticism was meant harshly or meant in full seriousness.
No, I think, you could be right. But I mean, the fact that somewhere somebody, they've got a case.
I think two things about it. I think part of it is that I think it's healthy that we exist in, not just us, but in general, that the world exists where if you put something out there and there's an opportunity for you to learn or do better, that there's a way to get feedback. Obviously, not all feedback is healthy. You know that because you'll put something out there and you'll get a million angry Prince fans that really don't deserve to be saying the things that they're saying. So
they love me until one day when they don't.
Right. But I think the fact that in general that I think it would be a bad idea to have too many conversations exist in a vacuum. I was just talking with somebody the other day about how the safest place for toxic masculinity is the barbershop. And how that's kind of really unhealthy that men can go to a barbershop and say anything without repercussions. And some of the things that are said there are perpetuating things that are harmful in the long run. And I think the fewer spaces we have where there's no repercussions, probably the better. Because I think because everybody here is somebody that has benefited from healthy discussion of what is harmful to other people. None of the three of us are people that are ignorant in that way. We're people that are very mindful of how others are affected in the world, whether it's racism, homophobia, sexism, things like that. Just general hate and discomfort, whether it's not, even if it's not based on a bigotry.
Sure.
We're three people that have great intentions when that kind of stuff is concerned, and I think that matters too. There's an old quote that I don't know who it's attributed to that says, "Lord, I don't always please you, but I think that the act that I want to please you pleases you," and I think that's true in this context as well. I think I disagree with the old quote of the road to hell being paved on good intentions. I think intent matters. And so I think the fact that we even started having these discussions with the intention of creating discussion to foster voices that otherwise weren't getting as much attention. When we did our first season, we were focusing on people of color, we were focusing on women, we were focusing on LGBTQ people, and making sure that people who were underrepresented in their field and oftentimes were experts. We had senators and we had, so many impressive people on. And I think the only straight white guys were me and Soul Asylum. Everybody else was somebody whose voice needed to be amplified additionally.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. But it does give me some insight into what it must feel like for a white bigot who's in the closet about it.
That's funny. Why can't I say the N-word?
No,
I want to say that.
Not even that country. I'm talking about regular guy.
Yeah.
How about regular white guy that you probably know and are friends with?
And they're smart enough to keep it to themselves, but yeah.
Smart enough to keep it to themselves, but are they also smart enough to understand why they should? And what the basic dysfunction is that they're undergoing or that they're feeding.
I think, speaking as a straight white guy, the persecuted class, of course, I feel like the biggest thing that most people lack is perspective, is the ability to see something, a situation, anything from somebody else's point of view. They're only able to look at it through their point of view, and most people are not able to look at themselves through somebody else's point of view.
Mm-hmm. And that's the price. And I'm realizing, that the real answer is that's the price you pay for being on the right side of history. You have to be twice as diligent with yourself as you're going to be with anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's why the idea of being a public speaker, grates on my nerves. Mm-hmm. That's why sometimes it gets difficult being in this position, because there's a lot of things that need to be said, and also for the right reason. But people tend to be locked within the confines of their own. Well, everyone's locked within the confines of their own understanding, and that's it. And I was saying to myself, like, surely anybody who knows me or has been following anything I've been saying or doing knows that I don't have a misogynistic bone in my body. I'm hearing the white guy saying, people who know me, they know I don't have one racist bone in my body. So for them to come at me like that over that one thing that I said, like, it's really not fair. Huh?
That one racist thing that I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, just because Go ahead, Michael. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I mean, just because you don't have a single racist or misogynist bone in your body doesn't mean you're not going to occasionally unintentionally. That's what they call microaggressions now. That's the term that the young folks are using, the young educated folks.
Oh, the young whippersnappers?
Yeah. A microaggression is when you say something that's bigoted, whether it's racist, sexist, homophobic, etc.
And then what? Try to justify it?
That you don't necessarily intend to be that way, or you don't realize it that way. It doesn't come across to you as aggressive, but sometimes to the person who's on the receiving end of it, it comes across. The classic example is a white person telling your black friend, "Dude, you're so well spoken." That's not an intently racist statement, but it comes across to a lot of black people as racist because they're reading into it. So the implication is that you don't expect black people to be well spoken, and so it's exceptional that I am, and so. That's the terminology for that. It's happening because my wife is corporate America, and she spends a lot of her days in corporate America meetings, and they they're trying to push for additional diversity and trying to push for all these things, but then they're still dealing with the white corporate structure. So it's day in and day out of confronting microaggressions, which are
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that is. It's when you're not trying to be aggressive, but it's coming across that way. And I think everybody's guilty of it at some point, because nobody's going to know all the right language and all the right perspectives until somebody teaches them. I used to make jokes that would have come across. I thought they were funny. And then some other people thought they were funny. And then and then some people would be like, okay, well, here's why that's not, here's why that's harmful to some people.
I still make jokes like that. Right. I'm just gonna say it.
Right. I try not to, and I probably still do too. I try not to, but it took people to show me, hey, just because 20 people laughed at you, here's 2 people that were really hurt by it, and here's why.
Yeah. Well, you got to decide if you're going to be that guy. There's plenty of that guy out there. Well, they just need to grow up. They just need to toughen up.
Well, here's the thing, and this is one of those broken clock is right twice a day things, because I can't think. There's not too many people I dislike more than Jay Leno, but Jay Leno had the smartest thing about this. He said cancel culture isn't real because if your joke is funny enough, nobody's offended, and if somebody's offended, then it wasn't funny enough. And that just wasn't a good joke. If 10 people are offended and 10 people laugh, it was an okay joke. But your goal is to write a joke that's funny enough that all 20 people laugh and nobody's offended. And if all 20 people laugh, it doesn't matter,
Well, yeah, it's good for Jay Leno, but for Patrice O'Neal, we both know that I'd rather have 10 people who are completely triggered by my joke, and the other 10 who are laughing so hard they're falling out of the seats. It depends on what you want your ratios to be.
Yeah.
That's what the kids are talking about, ratios out there now.
Ratios?
Ratios.
Ratios and electronic quadros and
we're all so old. Are you older than me, Jeremy? Which one of us is older?
And
I don't know how old you are. I'm 45 years old.
Okay, so you're a little older than me. Yeah, we're all I'm 40 this year, so technically, we're all 40 plus. This is the old man.
I'm an old man.
What was it? Men of a Certain Age. That was a TV show a while back.
Oh yeah.
With
probably
Ray Romano and Andre Brower and a few of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Spiffy Neuman. Did I gotta tell this.
Oh Lord, what's going on now?
It's a very brief. We can just close with it. It's just because you're black adjacent, you'll appreciate this. JT might also, because he's kind of black adjacent.
Tiffany likes his hair. That's close enough. That's good enough. Because Tiffany is black militant. That's she's not.
I'm thinking that it was either G Sharp or Morris Hayes that told me this story. I think it was G. G said they were over at Morris's grandmother's house, I think in Arkansas. And she said, "Baby, turn that stereo down. There's too many quadros coming out."
I remember this story.
Yeah. And he said, Morris and G looked at each other and Morris said, you mean watts, right, Grandma? I said quadros. Now turn it down. You can't question an old person's logic.
Nope.
Or the words that they heard.
I know what I said.
Yep. I said quadros.
And you don't even know what it came from. Like,
no, it just she heard a term that sounded like watts.
You remember, was it from the Kings of Comedy, the Wrench Around and Wrench It Off?
Wrench Around and Wrench It Off, yeah.
Was that for the Kings of Comedy?
I think that's D.L. Hughley.
Okay. Yeah, there was that one.
Just black people messing up the English language. It's all right.
I got my daughter's great-grandmother was half black, half Cherokee, and she would come up with some of the most, like, the words that she would come up with. I'm trying to think of some examples out of the blue. Yeah, you wouldn't, none of them would be words. Like, until you got to know her, you wouldn't understand what the hell she was saying.
Yeah, I mean, some black people mumble on purpose, man. They don't want you to know everything they're saying.
So, well,
I leave you with a colloquial interjection.
I'm definitely going to be now that you reminded of that story, I'm definitely going to be using quadros. Next time I'm at the church, I'm going to tell Scales he got to turn it down. He got too many quadros.
I'm going to use it
down.
I'm going to use it for sure in the studio too. I'm just going to start waiting for someone to actually call me out on like, what did you just say?
We'll see.
Oh no, there's not enough quadros, man.
Hang on, I just got to adjust the quadros real quick.
I could adjust the quadros.
Yeah.
What is JT talking about?
Man,
he's an engineer.
Well, we'll see. We'll leave it hanging whether or not we come back soon, because I know both Cody and Scales wanted to come back today, and I don't know where either one of them are. Both of them explicitly expressed an interest in being here today. So
This was Cody's idea.
I know. So I'll reach out to both of them, and if both of them want to give it another shot, we can hang out another week. But if not, then you'll see us the next time we have a reason to come and hang. This is we're never stopping for good. We just pause sometimes.
We're never stopping for good. Only stopping for bad.
Right. Yeah.
Never stopping for good.
I'm always happy to have a chance to chat with one of my favorite people, Mr. Michael Bland. And honestly, I like the addition of JT. I feel like this is a good group of people to have a conversation. So who knows? Maybe we'll see this art incarnation in the future again too.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
Wouldn't rule it out.
It's a pretty easy hang. I don't. I mean.
But on that note, you said let's try to make it a point. Let's get some more women. Let's see if we can get some women. Get some more people that aren't straight white guys at least. Right now you're outnumbered, Mike.
No, don't do that, man.
Yeah.
You're still not learning. You don't want to learn. The whole time we had this series, you want to know half the reason why I was just like, I can't. Because you kept downplaying your own demographic. I kept saying this, how can it be a fair fight? It's like you yourself, the positive tenets of being a white man in America are lost upon you. You've thrown your life away
I mean, if I really wanted to work being a white man in America, I would have a corporate job. I would have, I would have all the the picket fence, everything. Yeah, I threw it away by being a black adjacent musician. That's for sure.
Well, sure enough, whatever you got you your woman. But I'm telling you, you don't need to be any more black for her.
No. Nia's not. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But definitely, Nia's not somebody that's not what she fell in love with for sure.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, well, wow. All right. So what's the best case possible scenario?
I think when I decided to go down the path of playing music, particularly in black spaces, I don't think there's a better scenario. That's just,
that's just some spectacular woman you got.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You happen to get.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Because like you get different problems with different dudes. Black dude will bring you different problems than a white dude will bring it.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
As long as you don't start doing some of the same stuff the black dudes are doing.
Well, we better not go down this rabbit hole till we have the wives podcast. We got to have all the wives on here for this one. So
what we might have to have is
some investors.
Yeah, I don't know what it would take.
That podcast could get sponsorship.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Woo. Okay, let's leave it, man, because I'm about to heat up again, and I don't want to.
Yeah, we can get Michael going again. Well, love both of you very much. For those of you who are still with us, we got still few people hanging on.
12.
Just keep your eyes tuned. If we decide to come back again in the near future, I will post the flyer on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you see that flyer, you know what time it is. And in the meantime, just, keep an eye out because, like I said, Michael and I are never far. JT's not that far either. Hopefully everything's cool with Cody and Scales because we missed them. Somebody else said I should end out with what I end out on my ceiling fan-related YouTube videos, which is saying, last fan of the night. So I guess
that's what that meant?
Yes. So when we test ceiling fans, which sometimes we do for manufacturers and sometimes we do for collectors, we will start out the first one that we do and we'll say first fan of the night, and then the last one will be last fan of the night. And it's become a running joke among people that either are also collectors or work in that industry or watch those videos because they know that I'm gonna say last fan of the night, and so that's what that means. So last podcast of the night. So, well, okay. Right. We better sign off or we get in more trouble. So thanks, everyone. We will see you soon.
All right, JT, I'll call you in the morning, bro.